It all starts with the Asura family, which has an overwhelmingly imposing presence. This family is so powerful that they even managed to sway the emperor himself. They're the most prestigious lineage of mages out there, notorious for casting out their own relatives who are born without a lick of magical talent. In the palace, a group of staff members start whispering, and one of them asks if the others have already heard the latest scoop. Word is, the first young master tanked again at tapping into his magic, marking his third mana meltdown. One of them comments that the second young master should step up as patriarch, but they're immediately told to keep quiet so no one overhears. Another employee whispers that after failing 3 times, it's a no-brainer the young master's gone off the deep end, since he's always been a little off his rocker. The house butler appears and asks what the young master's been up to lately, being as weird as he's been. The employee explains that it all started a month ago, when the young master finally woke up, after spending a lot of time in bed due to the mana collapse. As soon as he opened his eyes, instead of resting, he spent a good while mumbling incoherent stuff that nobody could make out. He just took off barefoot out of the mansion, without giving anyone the lowdown. He went straight to the garden, under the heavy rain, dropped to his knees, and started digging the ground with his own hands. After digging so much, to the point of hurting his fingers, what he finally managed to hold on to was something totally mind-blowing. To everyone's astonishment, he lifted a measly weed with a completely deranged expression on his face. Just looking at him, I can tell this guy's the main man. The butler and the maid are totally speechless when they find out he's doing all that for a piece of weeds. The butler tries to defuse the situation by saying the weed was pretty rare, but the staff shout that the issue isn't that. The real issue is that since that day, he's been pulling weeds non-stop for an entire month without missing a single day. The protagonist was stoked, having snagged a rare blue basil plant. Multiple system alerts pop up confirming the harvest, and he's stoked to have had another productive day on the books. He shakes his hands to clean off the dirt and notices something suspicious around him. He realizes they're watching him closely again, and thinks about how exhausting it is to be the eldest grandkid of such a high-profile family. His current name is Lion Asura, but in reality, he used to be a young Korean guy named Baek Ji-hun. Back in Korea, he used to run the show as team lead, but he quit on a whim because he couldn't take the abuse from his unemployed boss anymore. And with all that free time on his hands, he decided to dive back into an old game he used to be hooked on. He lost his cool when he saw that all his old characters had been wiped, leaving him with nothing but the game's coins. Undeterred, he created a new character focused on crafting and lucked into a sweet set of skills with the special pack purchase. He decided to take the chill pill and go for a totally peaceful route because he didn't want to have to fight for his life, not even in a game. That was his last memory as Baek Ji-hun before everything changed. When he finally came to, he found himself reincarnated as Lion Asura within the game, 50 years after the final chapter of the story. Luckily, he inherited the memories of the original body, making it easier for him to adapt in that world while gathering a water sage. As he collected the plant, he unlocked the beginner herbalist achievement and earned 1,000 silver coins as a reward from the system. The system notifies him that an exclusive store will unlock as soon as he accumulates a certain amount of cash. This system is a major game changer. The protagonist becomes strong without a fight. Imagine the store should open with 100,000 florins, and note that if he works hard, he can escape that mansion very quickly. The young guy is stoked that the system screens are still up, and all the skills he bought are locked and loaded in his body. Still, he's worried, recalling that the previous owner of this body had failed to tap into his magic for the 3rd time. Since the Asura family only cares about merit, he knows they'll kick him out soon, so he needs cash to survive out there. So he's planning a way to scrape together some cash and get out of there in one piece as soon as possible. Suddenly, a plan pops into her head and she wonders if she should butter up the family patriarch with a courtesy gift to try and turn her situation around. To do that, he needs to level up fast and get a good item, when suddenly he notices a bright blue glow coming from a bush. Feeling like he's found something extremely valuable, he quickly moves towards the bright light. She uses her hands to yank the mysterious plant out of the ground and celebrates having gotten it. The system reveals he's just collected a rare 3-star sunbloom, a highly coveted item. Lion gets stoked about the new score, He's celebrating the fact that he's got a 3-star object, but then someone calls him out. So he turns around to see who's calling him and notices it's the ruler Sylvia, who comments that he seems very focused on pulling weeds. Lately, he says he's got his reasons and decides to show her the glowing plant to ask if she can see the shine too. She just comments that it seems to be a high-quality weed, but Lion insists it's intensely glowing despite the young man's persistence. The ruler falls silent, and it's clear the whispers of the servants about her madness must be true. Sylvia gently strokes his head and confirms that, in truth, she can't see any glow on the lion plant. He realizes that only he can see the magical glow around that special grass. She then asks him to return to the mansion, warning him that the patriarch is looking for him because he hasn't shown up since he woke up. As soon as he hears his grandfather calling, the young guy instantly gets all wound up and freaked out. His grandfather is the embodiment of strict merit, enforcing the law of the strongest with ruthless consistency, even with family members. The patriarch is the perfect target for Leon's to build a good relationship with and get some time before he starts looking. And Lion is desperate because he still hasn't prepared any gift to give him. In the midst of desperation, a brilliant idea suddenly pops into Lion's head. He asks Sylvia to let her grandfather know he'll be a bit late, but first, he has a favor to ask her. With a smile on his face, he asks if she could help him out with a little request before she leaves. In the mansion study, the patriarch attentively listens to his butler's report on the young Master Patrick's situation. He conjured a flame to burn the paper and asks if the kid was really just wasting his time pulling weeds since he woke up. The butler confirms and reports that Leon still can't tap into the mana, but his health and memory are spot on. Patrick visibly loses his cool over his grandson's lack of skill, letting out a heavy sigh of utter disappointment. Next, he orders the butler to leave and leave them alone in the room. As soon as the employee leaves, Patrick summons Sylvia, who emerges silently from the shadows of the study. He asks the housekeeper if she has any idea what that kid is cooking up right now. Sylvia tells him that he's still pulling weeds, something that all the mansion staff are already talking about. He adds that he extended his harvesting into the neighboring woods, but Patrick gets irate, saying that's not what Sylvia asked. He warns him that Lion sent word that he'll be paying him a visit later, which leaves the patriarch completely blown away by the young buck's audacity. He clenches his fists furiously, unable to believe his own incompetent grandson has the guts to make him wait. Screaming with rage, he threatens to level the entire forest if the young one doesn't show up before him in a heartbeat. Sylvia accepts the order calmly and starts to disappear into the shadows to deliver the message exactly as it was said. Alone in his office, the patriarch grumbled about his grandson's lack of breeding while placing his hand on a shiny orb. He watches Leon gathering herbs in the woods through the crystal ball, still griping that his grandson should have come to thank him for the upgrade. Meanwhile, Lion walks into a swanky room and is totally blown away by what he sees around him. He stumbles upon a vast array of top-notch alchemy gear and equipment. He realized his grandpa hooked him up with some high-end gear after just asking to use some basic alchemy tools. The young man gets ready to test a theory while analyzing Palmet Norsirdi's alchemy materials at his disposal. He opens the skill menu to check his collection and potion crafting levels before diving into the grind. In the game system, mastery levels rise from apprentice to master, a level only the server's top-tier players could reach. Lion knows that leveling up to that mastery level is a game changer, making creation a breeze and taking the final product to a whole new level. He'll start slow, crafting around 100 basic potions, then down them all by himself. The young man brings his hand to the smoldering cauldron to initiate the magical refinement process of the ingredients. With a simple command, she activates her extraction technique, and a golden light begins to emanate from her hands. The crimson liquid flows smoothly into the vial, indicating that the creation of the minor elixir of life was a major win. He's holding the vial high, stoked about the positive outcome of his first fabrication attempt in this world. He downed the potion in one shot and was stoked, saying that top-notch gear really makes all the difference in alchemy. The panel shows that his life was recovered to about 80% and marks his first alchemy feat as a major breakthrough. He slams the empty vial on the table, laughing loud, stoked that his level-up plan's gonna pay off before he runs into his granddad. With a dark and ambitious glint in her eye, She lets out a maniacal laugh as she contemplates the plan she's about to put into action. System alerts start popping up on the screen, indicating he's just a few potions away from hitting the 100 mark. After hours spent in the lab, he's starting to feel utterly drained and exhausted from chugging down those potions. The young man collapses exhausted in a chair, surrounded by empty flasks, feeling like he can't give another drop. Since his life is maxed out, continuing to chug healing potions has become a real drag. But he's forcing himself to take the last swig. He's barely sipping the rest, wincing in agony from being so stuffed. The system finally notifies him that he's completed the Novice Alchemist achievement, granting him 1,000 gold coins and a new recipe. Leon celebrates his success and gets ready to crack open the new recipe's data. With fists clenched and a confident grin, he's fueled up for the next step of his journey. Without wasting a second, he tosses the necessary ingredients into the cauldron to kick off his next big creation. Lion spent the entire time foraging for herbs, thinking about the perfect gift to give his grandfather. He ruled out potions of mana or life, since the patriarch has more than enough power and doctors on standby to attend to him at all times. With this, he decided to create an innovative potion capable of completely alleviating mental fatigue. The young one knows his grandfather is a high-strung guy, drowning in a sea of work every day. Even the most powerful wizards can't easily shake off mental exhaustion. The mental exhaustion is a whole different story, making this gift extremely useful and valuable to him. As he gazes into the cauldron, Leon catches a whiff of a fresh, invigorating scent, feeling confident that the recipe is on the right track. Remember, in the game, this mental fatigue potion was just worthless trash to sell to the merchant characters. But now that he's living in the real deal, the importance and value of this thing are a whole new ballgame. Reach out and tap that magic extraction trick again. As the blue liquid floats impressively through the air, it's a dead giveaway that this product is top-notch. Suddenly, flashes of happy memories from his old life in Korea start popping up in the bubbles of the liquid, like a nostalgic trip down memory lane. The system alerts that the mental fatigue recovery potion was created with success, tapping into the person's happiest memories. Lion gets stoked seeing he scored a 2-star item, realizing he nailed the gift for his grandpop. He can feel his mind clearing just by breathing in the scent from the bottle, blown away by the incredible power of the product. A new notification pops up on the screen, warning him that he's created an object that's a total game changer for his current skill level. Suddenly, a blue energy envelopes the lion's body, and the system alerts him that his talent for manipulating mana has been activated. The message reveals he's now capable of controlling magical energy around him with way more precision than the rest of the pack. A constant flow of mana starts circulating freely through his body, bringing him a completely new sensation. He's standing stock still in the middle of the room, trying to wrap his head around the massive physical transformation that just went down. With a smile on his face, he finally understands that that wonderful feeling is the famous mana energy of this world. Leon starts laughing hysterically and celebrating his sheer joy at finally awakening his own magical power. Outside the lab, his assistant is hearing the young master's hysterical laughter as he's celebrating his newfound achievement. He peeks through the crack in the door and sees the redhead laughing uncontrollably, which really freaks him out. The assistant closes his eyes with a sense of sorrow, thinking that the young master has finally lost it for good after his last meltdown. Without wanting to disturb him further, the man quietly walks down the mansion's hallway, regretting the young guy's relaxed state in his chair. Regretting the kid's relaxed state in his chair. Leon's celebrating that now he's got magic and cash, making his escape plan a whole lot easier to pull off. He closes his eyes with a supremely satisfied expression, savoring the moment of peace after all that hard work. However, he snaps back to reality the moment he realizes he's forgotten a crucial detail in the midst of all the celebration. He remains lost in thought in the silent lab until he finally remembers what he was supposed to do. He remembers his terrifying grandfather had been waiting for him at the mansion for quite some time already. The main office is getting tight with the obvious certainty that Lion is seriously running late for the meet. Patrick looks out the window with disdain, not getting why his grandson is going to such lengths just to brew a potion. Patrick reminisces about his own legendary status as one of the key members of the hero group that took down those beastly dragons back in the day. He's the big cheese of the Asteri family, a real heavy hitter who could probably bankroll his own country if he wanted to. He's grumbling that he could give his grandson a life of ease without breaking a sweat, and he can't fathom why he's so hell-bent on burning himself out. Patrick claims they've got all the money and power they need, and Sylvia quietly gets it that the old man's just worried about something. She decides to speak up and tries to bring a different perspective to comfort the man who's still got his arms crossed. Sylvia says she saw a genuine happiness on Lion's face while he was grinding to brew his potion. Patrick scratches his head in frustration, objecting that the happiness counts for nothing when the danger seems to be lurking over the kid. She agrees, recalling that surviving 3 consecutive collapses of mana is practically impossible in reality. As Leon walks with the guard towards the office, she's just hoping the kid gets to live his days in peace and quiet. A firm knock on the door interrupts the worried conversation between the patriarch and the ruler. The assistant opens the door and formally announces the arrival of the young master, who enters with a smile a little tinged with regret. Leon approaches the imposing desk of his grandfather and gives a respectful bow, sincerely apologizing for the huge delay. With a cold, piercing gaze, Patrick asks the reason why he took so long to present himself, since he got out of bed. Leon has maintained his composure and calmly explains that he had a lot to reflect on after going through his last mana collapse. He added with sincerity that everyone in the family knows damn well he's got 0 magic chops. As he looks at Sylvia's sad expression, he smiles kindly to calm her down, saying everything's cool and he's good with that reality. Looking at his own hands, he confesses that deep down, he was just refusing to accept that his body was straight up and capable of handling the mana flow. He felt like he no longer had a seat at the Asteri family's high table. However, the young one claims that things changed and extends the blue potion towards his grandfather, showing off the result of his acceptance. He studied hard to create something useful and become someone who wouldn't embarrass the proud family name. Lion smiles kindly and confesses that he prepared that special gift, thinking his grandfather must be running on fumes lately. Patrick looks at him intensely with his bright eyes, wondering what's really going on behind all that. The patriarch senses something's off about his grandson, something that goes beyond his posture or expression, like a fundamental shift has taken place within him. He catches his gaze drifting towards the shiny blue bottle, and it hits him that his grandson put in the hard work all this time just to hook him up. The old warrior's heart softens in the face of his grandson's attentive demeanor, finding the young one's effort to be supremely admirable. And he's totally stoked that his kid went to such great lengths just for him. Despite this, Patrick tries to regain his usual tough stance, reminding himself that he's already transcended to a higher plane. He thinks his body's bulletproof, that even the deadliest toxins wouldn't faze him. But the idea that his grandson pulled this off thinking only of him is enough to melt the old man's heart and set off a loud, proud whoop. He quickly tries to regain his usual stoic expression and asks if his grandson is done spilling his guts. Patrick says he understands, Lythe gives the young one permission to leave, and Leon bids farewell with a respectful bow and a faint smile. The young master exits the room, and the large office door closes quietly behind him, leaving the 2 older ones alone. Sylvia smiles quietly upon noticing the happiness etched on his face, but Patrick tries to downplay it with a hint of shyness, saying she's ridiculous. You're ridiculous. Putting aside the jokes, the patriarch takes a serious and intrigued look at the small blue vial. As he holds the Shina flask in his hand, Patrick comments that this potion gives him an oddly familiar feeling. Sylvia suggests they run a special diagnostic on the drink, but Patrick shoots the idea down, saying he just wants to enjoy the gift from his grandson with an open heart. He just wants to savor and genuinely appreciate the heartfelt sincerity of the gift his grandson gave him. The governess understands his decision, makes a bow, and decides to step down from the office to leave him alone for a moment. Now alone in the room, Patrick starts thinking about how long it's been since Leon last hooked him up with something. He's giving props to the top-notch craftsmanship of the bottle, knowing it takes a deep well of alchemy knowledge to whip something like that up. Despite feeling the effect will be null due to its immense power, he decides to drink it anyway, to avoid wasting his grandnephew's gesture. He brings the bottle to his lips and downs the bright blue mysterious liquid in one hit, waiting to see what goes down. As the liquid goes down his throat, a smooth and cleansing breeze seems to blow through the quiet office. In that same instant, Patrick feels a deep wave of calm and tranquility invading his exhausted mind. A bunch of fragmented, feel-good flashbacks from his legendary hero days start creeping into his fried brain. Before he knew it, he's drifting off into a deep and relaxing sleep that barely lasts a few minutes. Despite the super quick snooze, the dream he had was ridiculously sweet and full of chill. Slowly, the powerful patriarch starts to crack open his peepers as he wakes up from that sweet moment of Arnar. He's caught off guard by actually dozing off, but he's feeling ridiculously light in on a high. As he gazes at the empty bottle, he's gobsmacked to find that the bloody headache that's been plaguing him has vanished into thin air. The bright blue sky shines strong outside the imposing window, reflecting the old man's newfound spirit and clarity. With a faint smile on his face, he lets out a sigh and remarks that his blonde grandson always seems to get his way. Patrick thinks he can't just lock up his grandson for being weak, and that he needs to find a solid solution to these mana crashes. The old warrior wants to live a long time by his grandson's side, while the lion in the garden starts bawling without understanding the reason. In the garden, a group of employees start spreading a disturbing rumor that young Master Leon is about to check out for good. One of the employees even gave her grandfather a parting gift, hinting that his daily habit of collecting herbs was a sad ritual. Another employee lets out a sarcastic laugh, saying the kid's just looking for a sweet spot to chill in the garden. Suddenly, someone slams a heavy bucket to the ground right next to him, scaring the gossiping employee half to death. He's mortified, beats a hasty retreat with the other gossiping staff, and scurries back to work. The assistant rushes over and asks if Hannah the maid is okay, and she snaps at him that another assigned employee just quit on Leon. He's totally floored, and Hannah explains that the others were all trash talking about how easy the job was, because the young master barely gave them any work to do. She's griping that now everyone's bailing because of those dumb rumors, showing a total lack of loyalty to the family. Hannah keeps venting about the employees' ingratitude, when the assistant nervously warns her that someone very high up is right behind her. As she turns around, the maid goes ghost white after face planting into the stern head housekeeper right there. With a calm and intimidating smile, Sylvia asks her to spill the whole story behind that weird rumor in detail. A bit later, the assistant rushes to the main entrance and apologizes for the delay in arrival. Patrick says everything's cool, and asks if there was some kind of emergency at the mansion that would explain the delay. Meanwhile, the gossiping staff are seen being let go from the mansion at night with their suitcases, while the assistant changes the subject. Patrick freezes, trying to wrap his head around the utterly ridiculous situation he just uncovered about his grandson. Back in the office, Sylvia asks to analyze the vial using a super powerful technique called Witch's Eye. A bright pink aura envelopes the tiny vial, scanning its properties with meticulous detail. The patriarch jumps up, surprised by the results, and asserts with conviction that this potion could never have been brewed by Lion Sylvia. He takes a serious look at the vial and asks if that wouldn't be the legendary hero's brew. He's referring to the legendary hero of the world, who vanished mysteriously 50 years ago after putting an end to the war against demons. That hero was a force so unstoppable, no maze in the world could contain him or hold him back. His strength was so absurd that even the gods themselves hesitated to get in his way or face him in battle. She clenches her own hands tight, thinking that maybe only that hero could find the hidden contract and free a certain person. Patrick agrees, but says they can't jump to conclusions, since the hero's potion should still have a greater effect. He furrows his brow, mentally running through other possibilities that could explain the mystery of that potion. The patriarch shoots down that theory entirely, knowing it's a pipe dream that his weak and clueless grandson could ever be the legendary hero. He intends to ask Lion for an even better potion to help his sister break free from her deep sleep. He explains that his sister has been in a state of torpor for centuries, and that if the potion worked on him, it could also have an effect on her. As she hears the patriarch's grand plans for the young master, Sylvia lets out a sly smirk of satisfaction. Patrick accompanies her and starts laughing loudly with joy, feeling that he's finally found a real hope for his beloved sister. She thinks to herself that worrying about an immortal and all-powerful witch is the most pointless and senseless thing in the world. Sylvia tells the patriarch she doesn't need to burden her grandson with her problems, but Patrick tries to shoot back with an argument. With a bow, she thanks from the bottom of her heart for the genuine concern and affection that young lion showed her. The old man watches the ruler walk away, his heart fondly thinking of his beloved sister, who's been sleeping for so long. The next day, Lion returns to the office and comments that his grandfather seems to have a pretty worried look on his face. Patrick immediately tries to downplay it and dismisses the claim with disdain, saying it's a total nonsense, and starts making jokes about Lion's age, making Patrick's face turn red with rage, saying that's a total joke, kid Lion. He starts cracking some funny jokes about his age, and Patrick gets red with rage at his nephew's audacity. The young one finally hits the nail on the head by asking if the issue was about the potion, leaving the old man stunned into admitting the truth. Cut to the chase, Patrick gets straight to the point and asks if he'd be able to whip up an even better version of that potion. Lion gets lost in thought, knowing that with his skills and outdated gear, it was already a stretch to craft a 2-star item. Keep in mind that last harvest was a real long shot, and those high-grade herbs are getting harder to find in that area. Still, the young one knows he can't blow this once-in-a-lifetime chance, with a high-roller investor like this one taking on the challenge. With a serious gaze, he asks his grandfather exactly what that high-end potion would be used for. Patrick responds by revealing he plans to give the object to the head honcho, leaving Lion completely blown away by the news. Imagine a romantic vibe is brewing between the two old-timers, but the system quickly shuts him down, telling him it's not what he's thinking it is. Assuming his grandfather is just lonely, Lion asks for a 2-week deadline to whip up a much better version of the potion. Patrick's face is a picture of utter shock at the requested time frame, and he incredulously repeats the question to the young lion. He freaks out, slashes the deadline to just 1 week, and bolts out of the office before his grandfather can get a word in edgewise. The young guy is already popping the champagne before his grandfather can even get a word out. The young buck's celebrating while he's making tracks, knowing this is his shot to earn the big boss's total trust. Patrick extends his hand without a clue, finding it a weird move and also a bit confusing given his nephew's hasty attitude. Back in the woods, Lion starts to chill and wonders how he's gonna whip up a 3-star item in no time. He's aware there's no time to level up, and even with pricey herbs, he might not be able to utilize them to their full potential. Suddenly, a light bulb goes off in his head and he decides to check out the options available in the system's virtual currency shop. He opens the store panel and discovers that the item descriptions are hidden because he hasn't accumulated enough clams yet. Lion scans the list of common tools and blows a gasket over the outrageous prices the system is charging for each simple object. The kid grumbles about the high prices, even for old stuff, and decides to check if the other tabs in the store are just as pricey. He freaks out when he sees that simple magic condiments cost 10,000 shillings, realizing he won't be able to buy anything there for now. With the store out of the question, he notes he'll have to go back to the old school method of foraging if he wants to meet his deadline. Leon knows there's a limit to the amount of rare herbs he can scrounge up on his own in the underbrush. He's got to get his hands on some top-notch gear stat, and the rhythmic clank of hammers starts echoing in the background. In a noisy forge, a stout dwarf blacksmith is hard at work hammering hot metal, while his assistant rushes him to come take a look. The dwarf blacksmith is getting all bent out of shape for being interrupted in the middle of all this work, but the assistant is insistent that he comes a rush to take a gander. The enthusiastic employee warns that a super rich client just rolled in, instantly piquing the blacksmith's interest. The blacksmith steps out grumbling, having intended to only offer the rich client expensive trinkets, but finds the young lion waiting outside instead. The diminutive blacksmith is left in absolute shock at Lion's question of whether he was the owner of that blacksmith shop. Dressed to the nines, Lion asks politely if he could get the chance to work in his shop for a day, playing it straight. The young man quickly makes it clear that he's not doing this for free and pulls out a huge sack of coins to pay for the favor. He's willing to shell out a generous sum in 1900 gold to ensure the blacksmiths are totally stoked. Just before that, Leon was checking out some pickaxes on display in the street, weighing the quality of his collection gear. He noticed that regular shovels were subpar, since top-tier blacksmiths are usually too busy crafting high-end arms. Even with his family's influence, he knows it's impossible to get a top-notch tool in just one day. For that reason, he decided to personally head to the forge and ask them to create his own high-end harvesting tool using their workshop. Lion flashes a big smile, promising to reward the workers with an outrageous amount of gold coins. As the diminutive blacksmith lets out a wistful and greedy sigh at the dazzling brilliance of that gold-filled pouch. However, the blacksmith complains to his assistant, saying he's already given him a headache and doesn't want to waste time with noble games. Honestly, the assistant hands back some of the gold, explaining that that amount is way too much just to make a shovel. The assistant warns the young man to watch out for scammers, while Leon just chuckles wryly, having thrown his money at the problem on purpose. The assistant takes a deep breath, preparing to give a more detailed explanation of how things work around here. The dwarf blacksmith approaches Leon and asks him provocatively if a delicate kid like him really wants to forge a tool. They're known worldwide as the definitive breed of unbeatable artisans and blacksmiths. They've got freaking superhuman physical resilience, able to stick their hands straight into the flames without getting burned. On top of their absurd physical strength, dwarves are considered unbeatable when it comes to precision and attention to detail. The little blacksmith crosses his arms with an imposing posture and asks directly what's the name of the young blonde master lion. He presents himself politely, but the dwarf soon recognizes him as the infamous oddball everyone's been talking about in the region. Regardless of the titles, the dwarf orders a space to be set up for the eccentric young man to work, leaving his assistant in a state of panic. He points to one of the free forges, and Lion thanks him cheerfully for the opportunity and the genuine hospitality of the blacksmith lion. He tries to ask the little guy's name, but he's shocked to see the master blacksmith has already turned around and split without giving him the time of day. The assistant explains that his brother's name is Mudu. He introduces himself as John and asks Leon to follow him into the forge. John starts guiding the young one through the facilities, proudly showing off the various equipment and displayed arms on the shelves. The blacksmith tells him to feel free to take a gander at everything. As Lion gazes at the workshop with a bright, curious stare, John explains that the finished tools in this section are the same ones they usually display for sale in the showcase outside. As he watches the blacksmith's grueling work, Lion notices they're rocking top-notch gear and are super meticulous, but something's off. He checks out the display tools, wondering what's missing in the grand scheme, cause the final product still ain't living up to the hype. Suddenly, a weird movement in the flames catches the young man's eye, who quickly turns around to get a better look. The system warns that a low-level fire spirit is checking him out, and it looks way weaker than usual. Lion approaches the forge and asks John if the fire's always been a dud. Like that, John scratches his head, looking a bit down, and admits that, although it's not completely extinguished, the fire's had better days. The dwarf blacksmith Mudu suddenly appears and confirms the heat has dropped off a lot, asking in shock how the blonde noble managed to notice that. With a completely chill vibe, Lion just casually tells the little blacksmith that the fire itself spilled the beans, leaving him totally blown away. Mudu was about to break down the basics of crafting a shovel, but he cut himself off mid-sentence, shouting out loud and grabbing the young one after hearing that mind-blowing revelation. Mudu orders John to back off immediately so he can have a private chat with the young master. The little dwarf takes the young one to a more secluded spot in the courtyard and looks at him with a serious and pretty mysterious gaze. With a piercing stare, the dwarf blacksmith asks if the kid really saw that, and Lion confirms straight up that if Mudu's hopeful, the young one's probably gonna crack that problem. And Lion responds cool as a cucumber that yeah, he's likely to. The dwarf blacksmith promises to personally teach the kid the art of smithing if he can actually get the fire going. Mudu adds that he'll give Lion's orders top priority from now on, leaving the young boss pretty gobsmacked. The young guy knows that that shop is so renowned in the kingdom that they get high priority gigs from neighboring territories all over the place. Realizing the priceless value of that incredible partnership proposal, Leon jumps at the chance, sporting a huge and enthusiastic grin. Mudu explains internally that he burned out working overtime to expand the workshop, but now the firecracker's lost its mojo. Without the fire in his belly, the quality of his work takes a nosedive. And Mutus is at his wit's end because, as a runt, he can't even communicate with the spirits. Despite considering Leon weak and unreliable, the blacksmith knows that the young one is his only hope, because he can see the spark within. Leon listens to the magical creature and warns the blacksmith that the little fire spirit is complaining of being parched right now. The kid suggests tossing some water to help, but Mewdo blows his top, saying it's total madness to throw water on the fire. Leon asks the stressed out dwarf to calm down and explains that they need to give the spirit something that can actually consumed without being extinguished. Mewdo, desperate, says he'll give the kid his magnum opus or anything else he wants if he gets the fire going. Lion asks if the blacksmith is dead serious about that promise, and the dwarf confirms with all the seriousness in the world. With the deal sealed, they shake on it, and Lion promises to get cracking on it that very night. The night soon falls over the dwarven forge, bringing the starry sky and a full bright moon on the horizon. In the lab, the young one lets out a tired sigh and notes he's been putting in overtime in that world too. The system alerts him that the little guy's clocked overtime in that world too. The system alerts him that the little fire spirit is complaining of extreme thirst due to overwork, and Lion promises to help him out soon. Lion gets the pain of the little spirit for working too hard in that massive workshop, something that makes him recall his old life in Korea. Knowing the creature needs to recharge, he decides to whip up his signature rosemary essential oil recipe, water style. He explains that even though the plant's salty, when it's refined that way, it becomes a spirit-friendly oil that's off the chain. The bright green oil is successfully finalized, emitting a super fresh and revitalizing aroma all over the lab. Pour the vibrant green liquid over the flames and let the fire spirit get absorbed with great enthusiasm. The little fire spirit is totally stoked, but the system's still warning that it's not fully quenched, and Leon's all about getting it done. The young one gets back to work with dedication, squeezing the fresh rosemary leaves dry to extract every last drop of oil. Finally, the fire spirit quenches its thirst completely, and his vital energy is totally restored in a blaze of glory. The spirit shows immense gratitude, which earns Leon a 30/100 experience points in his resonance ability. Muda bursts into the room with arms wide open, yelling stoked, hyped that the kid actually managed to save the fire. The little blacksmith looks at him with tears in his eyes and a deep look of respect, finding Leon to be an absolutely incredible young blood. But the young one starts to wobble from exhaustion, and the dwarf asks, worried, if he's good to go. Leon flashes a weak smile and tries to reassure him, saying it's just exhaustion from pulling an all-nighter. He's burning the midnight oil. Suddenly, the young man's body can't take the extreme exhaustion anymore, and he faints on the blacksmith's floor, leaving the dwarf in a panic. Mutis completely loses it when he sees the blonde kid out cold and starts begging him not to check out. That's the end of the road for him. The sun rises over the horizon, and a soft, white veil of smoke begins to gently rise up the blacksmith's chimney. Two cute kids with green eyes observe Leon with curiosity, and cheerfully ask which is the little brother's name. Blonde. Before Leon can respond, the little ones introduce themselves with affectionate nicknames like Golden Twig and Jade Leaf. Both kids burst into happy laughter together, and Leon smiles, noticing how close and affectionate those two brothers are with each other. Remember, you also have a younger brother in that world, but recall that the kid was cold and didn't seem to want you around much. He shrugs it off while eating, thinking there's no issue as long as they don't cross paths, since he's not interested in leading the family pack. Leon breaks his train of thought upon hearing the voice of the kid's mom calling them from the dining room. The woman asks her kids to go play somewhere else and let the guest eat in peace, but the kids think his name is Youngster. Omalian lets out a chuckle and tells the kids that his real name is Leon, making the little ones excitedly repeat the name. The little one says he finds the title of Young Master way more awesome, and Leon accepts the nickname in a warm and gentle way. The kids burst out laughing and running around the house, while their mom chides them for continuing to disrupt the guest meal. She apologizes for the commotion caused by her kids, but Lion raves about the delicious soup and says it's great to see the little ones bursting with energy. She confesses with a worried look that she was totally blown away when her husband brought the young guy home in a coma that morning. She deeply thanks Leon for fixing her husband's problems, but the young man says that rest and food were reward enough already. The door swings open and blacksmith Mudu walks in, asking if the kids slept tight, and is greeted with joyful screams from his kids. The little ones rush to hug him and ask if the young hero saved the spirit from the flames. As Mudu flashes a dirty chin grin courtesy of Eugene Lion, he warms up to the cozy family scene with a warm smile on his face before calling the young master back to the forge. The little blacksmith gives a confident look and lets the young one know he's got everything dialed in and ready to roll. The young apprentice follows him back and stays pretty curious about what the little guy prepared for him that's so special. As he walks in, he sees top-notch tools laid out, and Mudu assures Leon that all his orders will always be top priority. The blacksmith then says that's not the most important thing right now and calls the young man to follow him to the back of the workshop. As he looks at what's stored there, Lion's eyes go wide in shock, and he asks if what he's seeing is actually some high-grade Mudu steel. He's got a massive stack of pure iron bars, explaining he prepped the material ahead of time to avoid the kid face-planting again. Lion comments that the dwarf has taken the lesson very seriously, and Mudu spins around saying he wouldn't let the kid just wing it in any way. The young one turns beet red, assuring Mutus he's dead serious about learning the ropes ASAP, leaving Mutus stoked and ready to get hands-on. The little blacksmith stands in front of the fiery forge and explains that the foundation of all blacksmithing lies in controlling the iron's temperature to a precise degree. Mudu shows the glowing metal and warns that red doesn't mean ready, and overdoing it will melt the metal to a crisp. The iron reaches a bright yellow perfect tone, and the master dwarf yells firmly, indicating the exact moment to start hammering. With precise blows that spark flying all over the room, Mudu shows the necessary force to thin out the blade, while maintaining its structural integrity. Mudu. He explains that after shaping the basic form of the metal, the next step is to hone in on the details and sharpen the blade with a whetstone. To wrap up the whole process, the master dwarf blacksmith snugly fits the wooden handle onto the head of the shovel. Mudo shows off the finished shovel to an impressed Lion, playfully asking if it was really that easy to make. The dwarf brags that it'd be a real challenge for regular folks, while Lion asks if he can already start using all that pile of iron. Mudo gives the thumbs up, and Lion starts loading multiple heavy iron blocks at once, leaving the blacksmith totally baffled by his lightning speed. Lion just dumps all the iron at once into the blazing forge, leaving the blacksmith screaming in desperation at that madness. With a supremely confident gaze by the side of his little buddy, the fire spirit, Leon says calmly he's gonna give it a shot. The kid starts hammering away at the metal relentlessly and admits that although he expected it, the job's way tougher than he thought it'd be. His first attempt is a total bust, resulting in a twisted hunk of iron that's gonna need to be melted down from scratch. Though it's a total grind, he refuses to throw in the towel, and you know what? If he keeps at it, he'll eventually hit the jackpot. The young one keeps trying over and over, and the system notifications show that his completion progress is slowly creeping up. Leon tosses the iron block back into the fire pit, psyching himself up for another shot with laser focus and detonation. He raises the massive sledgehammer and nails the scorching metal with precision, hitting the beat dead on in the process. With a swift, high-energy swing, he lands a perfect blow on the metal, sending out a shower of bright sparks throughout the workshop. In the face of his persistence, the system congratulates him for awakening the talent of the novice blacksmith, leaving Mudu in shock with the young man's impressive evolution. With the golden glow and perfect shape of the molten metal, the little blacksmith's all fired up, telling them to use that piece. Mudu's mind is blown, noticing the energy and quality of that metal are off the charts, like nothing he's ever seen before. The dwarf takes over the job and starts honing the blade with mastery, generating a brilliant shower of sparks under Lion's watchful eye. He expertly fitted the wooden handle to the newly forged metal head with surgical precision, completing the new hull. Holding the gleaming object at 100% completion, Lion celebrates and sees he's created a perfect tool. Imbued with the power of fire magic, enthusiastically shouting he's got an absurd talent. Claiming that this plow is better than what most common blacksmiths could achieve. The dwarf insists they should be celebrating even harder, but Leon says he's just gonna take a quick breather to recharge. With a beaming smile and boundless energy, the young one surprises the blacksmith by asking him to teach him how to craft a sickle of the harvest. Muda makes a goofy, totally bewildered face. Unable to believe the unyielding determination of that blonde young master, he bursts into laughter, praising the absurd determination of the kid, finding his attitude genuinely hilarious and infectious. The little guy happily agrees to teach him everything he knows, while Leon celebrates, knowing his plan to help his grandfather is moving right along. Under the moon's bright light, full in the dark forest, the young one vows to himself that he'll make his grandfather's desire an absolute reality. The wind whispers softly between the trees of the dense forest, creating a hushed and silent atmosphere under the starry night sky of the territory. Suddenly, the night silence is shattered by the dry, solid thud of a shovel being slammed into the damp ground. The system reveals has just harvested a ginseng root from a starfinger, a super useful ingredient for regaining vitality. Sitting on the ground, Lion's impressed as hell to see how a top-notch shovel makes collecting these delicate items a total breeze. With an analytical and thoughtful gaze, the young master notes that the advantages of his new shovel go way beyond the ease of collecting. He realizes that with the weight of both the new shovel and axe, new pathways and rare plants are starting to sprout up around him in the forest. The young one flashes a confident grin, knowing that whipping up a 3-star potion will be a total breeze once he's put in some more practice. Determined to reach his goal, he kneels back down to the earth and prepares to keep digging until he masters the technique perfectly. He scored some legit star yams and banana shoots, which are going to be a solid food source. He's got a beat on the hole in the ground, and he's stoked that they're legit camotes, which means there's a whole lot of more where those came from, buried down there. Suddenly, the shovel in his hand starts spitting flames, leaving the kid totally freaked out and clueless about what's going down. The system alerts that the fire spirit as blessing on his shovel has been activated, handing him a perfectly toasted sweet potato in an instant. As he reads the description, he's thrilled to discover the blessing can cook any edible food to perfection in an instant, which he thinks is an absurd stroke of luck. He's impressed that he managed to get a meal so well prepared with just a single scoop of dirt. Feeling the mouth-watering aroma of the hot food, Lion decides to take a break from foraging to chow down on that roasted sweet potato that's literally making his mouth water. He devours the roasted sweet potato with gusto, but ends up burning his tongue because the food is still scorching hot. Despite being scorching hot, he blows on it and keeps on chomping down with gusto, thinking that the roasted tubers taste even more finger-licking this way. He's chomping down on the roasted sweet potato with gusto, but ends up scorching his tongue because the food is still scorching hot. Despite being hot, he blows on it and keeps on eating with enthusiasm, thinking that the roasted sweet potatoes taste even more delicious this way. The lion savors the sweet and smooth food, indulging in the one-of-a-kind and comforting flavor of that perfectly conjured root by magic. He's feeling like that amazing combo is just as tasty as a warm sweet potato with a cold glass of milk. Sitting chill in the lush green grass of the woods, the young guy is stoked to have scored a grub that's this tasty and comforting. However, the moment of peace is disrupted when a small, chubby white dove gently settles onto the grass right in front of him. The little bird looks at him deadpan, begging for scraps, which cracks Leon up. If he wanted a bite of the lion's sweet potato too, he tosses a piece of the roasted sweet potato to the ground for the bird to chow down on. The little bird pecks at the food and loves the taste, making the young one laugh and tell him to chow down. He had a buddy like that back in the day, and now I'm wondering if he's okay. After refueling with the candy, Lion decides it's time to start gathering the ingredients for the potion. The young master smiles with the bird on his shoulder and thinks he should gather some more turnips first. Meanwhile, in the Grand Asura family castle, a heavy sigh of concern echoes through the gardens. John's going frantic because it's been 3 days since Leon left the house to head to the forge, and he's wondering if he should go look for him. He noticed the young master is still not back and freaks out upon realizing there's someone else lurking nearby. He runs into Sylvia, the mansion's iron-fisted matriarch, who's given him the usual stern, imposing once-over. John says he's super worried, especially with the buzz that the young master's gonna split or get cut off from the family soon. Suddenly, Lion pops up with a smile, waving at them with his hand, and asks if everyone was out there waiting for him. The young assistant rushes over to him, asking anxiously, "What's the big deal?" But Lion says he's good. The kid lets out a nervous laugh and tries to calm them down, saying it's no big deal. John wonders how the heir ended up like that and asks, "What's that little bird doing on your shoulder?" Leaving Lion in the dark. Lion looks at the little bird and is surprised, wondering when it started following him. Sylvia approaches Lion slowly and calls out to him in a calm but very serious tone. "He's had enough?" Lion asked if she found out something from her grandfather. The kid's got his hands on his head, whining that his granddad's got no class when it comes to keeping a secret. Sylvia looks confused, but Lion asks her to wait just a bit longer and tells her he managed to get all the ingredients. She's totally floored and asks if he really scored the goods. Receiving a positive response from the young man, he runs animatedly towards the mansion's interior and asks him to wait, promising to get everything ready as quickly as possible. Lion also lets John know he's good to go and can get back to normal business. Leaving the assistant dazed, John sprints after him, yelling for him to at least use some salve on the scattered cuts and scrapes. As she listens to the desperate cries of the young one in the distance, Sylvia remains silent, observing the scene with a thoughtful gaze. She thinks most potions won't work on her since she's a witch, and recalls how Leon was always the weakest link in the family. He was the most fragile of the family. He was the grandson she protected the most, and seeing that fragile kid pull all-nighters working at the forge and gathering herbs was almost comically moving. That situation sparked a tiny glimmer of hope within her. Take a step forward on the garden stone path and whisper to herself about that unbelievable situation. The woman wonders if that kid would actually be able to produce a potion at a level that's supposed to kick in within a few days. And Sylvia is received in the main office with confirmation of her arrival at the meeting place. Patrick observes his sister's expression, holding the vial, and comments that the potion seems to have had a pretty positive effect on her. He's been smiling at her and reveals that his exhausted mind has finally cleared up after decades. Sylvia is stunned that the kid managed to pull off something so effective in such a short time, and she accuses the patriarch of somehow helping, but Patrick denies it firmly and says he didn't do anything at all. He's too busy prepping Leon's coming-of-age ceremony, which was canceled, to be bothered with the paperwork. Sylvia realizes that if Leon pulled off that incredible potion all by himself, it would actually create a whole other massive problem. Check out the bottle on the wooden table and comment that this potion looks like something a legendary hero would drink. The patriarch explains that by tradition, a hero is a being that emerges alongside monsters to save the world before evil consumes it. He's thinking that the personal lives of those heroes are never happy, since they're constantly going through endless battles and dealing with constant emptiness and desperation. Patrick keeps saying that when peace finally returns, heroes just vanish like disposable tools. He clenches his fists tightly and adds that they vanish without a trace, exactly like they vaporized into thin air. The man reveals that the remaining comrades and descendants tried to search for him everywhere, but never found even a single clue about him. So he asks a worrisome question about what they should do if Leon is really one of those legendary heroes destined for that kind of ending. He already lost a battle buddy in the past and it was too painful. I don't want to go through that with my grandkid. As she listens to his words, Sylvia flashes a confident smile and declares that now's the perfect time to keep the kid under wraps. She solemnly announces her retirement, leaving the patriarch utterly stunned by the sudden decision. Patrick stands up indignantly and asks if it makes any sense for her to give up her own freedom just to keep Lion hidden. She says she shouldn't want to be a permanent subordinate to the family, but he's cut off before he can continue. Worrying about a witch's well-being is the most pointless and senseless thing that exists in the world. Sylvia takes a step forward as dark magic swirls around her, revealing she's already got every detail of their contract memorized. She recites that witch Sylvia can't leave the family's lands, but can live freely as a human within the territory. She explains that since the young master allowed her to live more humanely in various ways, she wants to do something for him. With a beautiful smile on her face, Sylvia claims she'll keep him close, happily keeping her promise. In another mansion room, someone's wondering if they just hired a new staff member for real. It's Alex Salastri, the second born, who's freaking out that this new hire has got a thing for Lion. He's considered a precedent-shattering genius, the future family heir, and the youngest fourth circle mage in history. In many ways, he's the heir who most resembles the patriarch Patrick, using his short age as a powerful tool. For someone as level-headed as Lixel, the sudden appearance of this new maid in the mansion seemed like a seriously fishy move. She thinks it doesn't add up that Sylvia just up and quits over some potion, and there's something seriously off about this Lixel replacement. So, recall the events of the previous night when you had a crucial conversation in your own bedroom. I had mentioned that Sylvia seemed pretty upbeat on asked if she was really bailing, and she confirmed she was just saying goodbye. The ruler explained that the potion given by young Master Leon had worked miracles in her health. At that moment, Lixel admitted he still couldn't wrap his head around how that was even possible. She then suggested that if he was so curious about it being true, he should go see his older brother in person himself. Sylvia recalled that he used to tag along after his brother everywhere as a kid, but Lixel dodges the question and says that's ancient history. He arrived with a straight face and swore on his honor that everything he said was the cold, hard truth, leaving the young man in a state of deep contemplation about his brother's situation. Sylvia finished saying it wouldn't be a bad idea if he followed and kept a close eye on young Master Leon for at least a whole day. He thought he finally shut her up, but she was still too stoked, and he couldn't wrap his head around the fact that it was all thanks to his clueless brother's harebrained scheme. He's gonna go scope it out for himself, recalling that they said Lion's been hanging out in the Mimir woods. Night falls over the vast family territory, shrouding the dense and dark trees of the treacherous Mimir forest. As he enters the woods, Lixel complains that the place remains as gloomy as ever, and that there's no decent path to walk on. He's wondering what his brother sees that's so attractive about the place, since if he needed alchemy herbs, sending John to fetch them would have been enough. Suddenly, a weird, repetitive beat starts echoing through the forest, making Lixel freeze and wonder what the heck is going on. Through the woods, making Lixel stop and wonder what weird noise that is. He freezes in fright on peeks over the bushes, spotting his older brother crouched and focused on some weird task on the ground. Lixel recognizes his brother and is left totally baffled by what the heck he's doing out here in the middle of nowhere, in the dark. As he takes a closer look, he's shocked to see Leo's mouth wide open, about to take a massive bite out of some filthy dirt. Lixel leaps from his hiding spot, brandishing his magic wand, and screams at the top of his lungs for his brother to stop immediately. He's yelling that the lion can't chow down on that filthy mess, and he's casting a gust spell that whips the sweet potato right out of his brother's hand, freaking him out. An awkward silence falls over the clearing as both brothers stand there staring at each other. Without a clue how to react, Leon drops to his knees on the ground, sobbing in desperation as he sees his delicious roasted camote crushed and completely impossible to eat. The older brother stands up, irritated, asking who's there and what's the point of it all, but soon realizes it's Lixel Lion. He asks what he's doing there as Lixel goes into internal panic for having ruined his plan to just observe him in secret. Lixel stands there speechless as Lion approaches, thinking his little brother came all the way here just to scope him out in the woods. Lion takes a nervous step back, wondering if the family prodigy came here to keep a close eye on him, although that wasn't the real reason. Lixel apologizes for the sudden use of magic, but insists he couldn't let him eat dirt, to which Lion responds that sweet potatoes come from the earth. Lixel asks in a technical tone if he's referring to a high-starch tuber, leaving Leon bewildered, having never heard a description like that before. Impressed, Leon asks if he's never actually eaten a sweet potato in his life, leaving the younger brother feeling sheepish about the doubt. The kid's all fired up, saying he's missing out on the best life has to offer. As Lixel wonders if that's really such a big deal, Lion tells his brother to sit tight for a sec while he goes to grab some more sweet potatoes, and the younger one hesitantly agrees. Lion turns around with a huge grin on his face and asks if his younger brother knows how to cast fire magic. Asks if the kid can light a small fire for them, and Lixel agrees, saying it's not that hard to do. The young prodigy wizard sits facing the brilliant fire he just conjured up in the dark clearing. Leon returns carrying several fresh comrades on his arms and asks if the fire is ready, receiving confirmation from his brother. Without hesitation, Lion tosses all the sweet potatoes straight into the intense flames of the fire pit, leaving Lixel completely stunned by his attitude. Lion tells them to wait for them to cook and calms his brother down, who was worried they'd get burned, explaining that the thick skin protects the inside perfectly. The two brothers sit side by side on a fallen log, waiting in silence for the food to finish cooking over the crackling fire. Lixel shoots a sideways glance at his brother and breaks the chill of the night with a smooth, reflective tone, starting to speak. Lion smiles and says that ditching the daily grind and doing something totally different really helps clear a tired mind. He's saying that pushing yourself is good, but taking a break is crucial, so the younger one nods in understanding, and they're both ready to chow down. Lixel holds the hot food with his hands and takes a big bite, surprised by the incredibly sweet and comforting taste of it. He takes a thoughtful bite, and his eyes widen in surprise as he realizes the warm food is incredibly delicious. He's stoked at straight fire, and Lion chimes in, saying they're known as banana sweet potatoes. Even though their territory doesn't get a harsh winter, the woods get chilly and dark at night, making you crave something hot to eat. It's all about warm snacks, like roasted sweet potato and sweet fish bread, the perfect secrets to keep anyone cozy in the cold. Lion observes his younger brother chowing down with a massive appetite that night. He thinks kids that age eat a ton, and remembers he used to chow down all day back when he was a young student. Lion suddenly looks over and is floored by the massive pile of empty shells he's mindlessly accumulated. Lion says he's relieved to see the grub hit the spot, leaving the kid pretty embarrassed and stumbling over his words. The kid admits it was a hit and Lion tells him to chow down as much as he wants, because he knows he's hustling hard for the fam. Lion comments that though it's tough being the sick one, it's even more brutal for the one stuck watching from the sidelines. His older brother smiles kindly and assures him that he never considered that situation a burden or difficulty in his life. He's dead certain he never blamed his brother for anything, but deep down, he's still got some doubts about himself. The kid confesses he's got a little envy of him because Lion's got the one thing that's missing from his life. He's fidgeting nervously, saying he's good with his life and will keep trying to crack Lion up, but looking at the little guy's worried reactions. He thinks to himself that his brother's just a kid at the end of the day. He says it's normal to be selfish at his age and suggests that if he gets tired of studying, he should just follow his heart every now and then. The older one sits right next to him on the log, slapping him on the back, giving props to how hard he's been grinding so far. Staring up at the starry sky with his brother by his side, Lixel thinks Sylvia was right in. He's stoked to have hit up Leon's pad in the woods again from the comfort of his own room. Leon checks his notifications and notes that he's already accumulated a total of 71,000 coppers. He's stoked he'll be able to cop some chelines soon and realizes all that trouble was worth it for Sylvia's potion. The young guy chuckles at the irony that his grandpa got ghosted by Sylvia, while the old dude is mentally screaming that it wasn't exactly like that. He's stoked to have closed the gap with Ixel and is breathing a sigh of relief now that he can chill without the constant fear of getting kicked out. Someone gives a gentle knock on the door to his room and the young guy, all comfy, yells out to let the person in. The door creaks open and a smooth voice greets him, leaving the young master completely stumped and blown away by the visit. The new employee introduces herself as Elvia, saying she'll be taking care of him from now on, but Leon gets a weird and familiar vibe from her. He deduces there's some special motive behind it and thinks it makes sense that there are other breeds around, even dwarves in the fiefdom. The young guy says he's stoked to work with her, and Elvia gives him a nod, telling him to hit her up anytime he needs anything. She flashes a friendly smile and seizes the opportunity to genuinely thank the new hire for her assistance. He's stoked that they finally closed the gap with his little bro, thanks to what went down. The girl apologizes, saying she didn't quite catch what he meant, but Lion chuckles apologetically and tells her not to worry about it. The young master then turns around in a hurry and asks if they can pick up that conversation at a more convenient time. He's got a prior commitment to get out of the mansion with Lixel today. Meanwhile, in the bustling commercial district of the village, people are chatting it up under the bright blue sky and sunny weather. Lixel walks through the streets, looking puzzled by the whole situation, finding it extremely strange and intriguing, but unable to grasp the motive behind it. The younger one wonders how his brother's physical strength continues to be so poor, despite climbing mountains every day and collapsing from exhaustion. Leon runs exhausted behind him, begging him to wait, while Lixel thinks he desperately needs to be seen by a priest. Ease up and help your brother out, worried that Leon's gonna crash hard before the big family succession ceremony. He's gonna come up with a low-key way to get him seen by a priest without drawing attention, knowing the safest way to do that is through volunteer work. Remember, their doctrine encourages charity, which would let them approach the priest in a very natural and safe way. Lion asks where they're headed, and Lix explains that the young nobles draw too much heat, so they need something to wear as a disguise. Lion suggests they hit up a regular fabric store to blend in, but the little brother shoots down the idea straight away. Smirking with confidence, Lixel reveals that their real destination is actually a shop that specializes in magical tools and gadgets. They arrive at the mysterious establishment, and the soft jingle of the doorbell announces the entry of the two young customers into the shop. Lion's impressed he's never been here before, and Lixel says only insiders come here, hoping they don't sell anything sketchy. The younger one raises doubts about the legality of the items, leaving the older brother pretty spooked and hesitant. With that response, Leon starts to inspect the items on the shelves of the magical tool store and notices something peculiar that really catches his attention. He found everything fascinating, but noticed the objects seemed like kids' toys, like cheat sheets for exams and earbuds for better hearing. Lixel sheepishly admits he knew the place back in the day and assures that despite the kid-friendly appearance, these gadgets are actually pretty handy. Suddenly, the owner of the establishment emerges from behind the counter, exclaiming loudly and confirming the absolute efficacy of his products. The chubby and friendly guy jokes that he sells everything except hair loss remedies and highlights his top-selling tools. He explains they're looking for disguise tools, and the salesman enthusiastically says he has those items and invites them to follow. The guy points to the shelf full of potions and accessories and claims that everything in that section is a disguise tool. He's showing them the budget-friendly options that tweak just the basics, like a charm that slims you down and temporary height enhancers. Next, he showcases the high-end products that can even change the color of your hair, warning that they're super effective, but also super pricey. Show a brooch called Unrecognizable Kid, which alters hair color, eye color, and even creates temporary, fake tattoos. The door chime rings out cheerfully as they leave, with the shop owner waving goodbye and telling them to come back whenever they can. Lixel asks what he thought of the place, and Lion responds that he found the store super fun and plans to come back there with more chill in the future. Lion notices the vendor had tossed some freebies into the bag, but Lixel thinks it's probably no big deal, since the shop doesn't exactly give away gifts for free. However, upon taking a closer look at one of the additional items inside the paper bag, Leon lets out a surprised and curious sound. He caught wind of the fact that he scored a repair kit from the artisan as a gift, a seriously valuable item that left him blown away that it was free. Lixel says those items are useless and lets his brother have them all, leaving Leon super stoked by the generosity. Lion suggests they get into costume ASAP, and Lixel is down, nodding towards a quiet alleyway nearby. From there, they can activate the transformation magic of the accessories, causing their hair and eye color to change instantly. Lion checks himself out in the mirror with brown hair and blue eyes, and he's totally blown away by how freakishly perfect and natural the magic disguise looks. Lixel comments that that's enough to keep a low profile, and they both agree to move on with the day's plan. As they arrive at their destination, Leon looks puzzled, wondering why they stopped in front of a watermill to do some volunteer work. Lixel calms his older brother down by explaining that wheat flour is one of the donation items and that they only stopped at the mill to pick them up. He's also got a bakery that churns out fresh bread, leaving Leon gobsmacked that he had no idea mills did that, let alone grind grains. Lixel thinks to himself that, besides the flour, he has another major reason for choosing to go specifically to that mill. They're warmly welcomed by Nicholas, the mill owner, who cheerfully says he's been expecting the guys to arrive. Lixel plans to buddy up with Nicholas, a well-connected philanthropist, to get easy access to the temple. That way, he'll be able to introduce Leon to a priest and asks the mill owner if the flour milling process went smoothly. Nicholas is stoked, saying it's been ages since he smelled such high-quality wheat, and the grains are spot on. The man asks why they need so much flour, and Lixel responds that he was moved by seeing hungry kids, and praises Nicholas's kind gesture, then asks where he plans to deliver the donation. And Lixel says he's still thinking it over and asks for advice. The merchant strokes his chin thoughtfully, while Lixel silently prays in his mind for the merchant to suggest the local temple. Nicholas suggests donating to the orphanage run by the temple, causing Lixel to celebrate with great emotion while Leon remains clueless. Leon asks how many kids are housed at the orphanage, and the mill owner responds that it's not many, maybe around 30 in total. Lion comments that he thought the temple had top-notch facilities, but Nicholas explains that the budget was slashed, and as a result of the Magic Elite's lack of attention, the temple struggles to get support from them, making it tough for the orphanage to get aid from them. Nicholas wants the young ones to actually help the orphanage, but Lion cuts him off, asking for a minute. Lion recalls they bake bread in the mill and points out that just donating flour would give the priest a ton of work to prepare the food. So why don't they whip up some fresh bread right there so the kids can chow down ASAP? He argues that the orphanage might not have the other necessary ingredients, so receiving fresh, ready-to-eat bread would be a whole lot better for them. Nicholas loves the big suggestion and says it's totally doable, bragging about his mill's bakery being famous for its delicious bread. Lixel pauses, realizing he was so focused on the plan for his brother that he hadn't even considered the real needs of those kids. He smiles, noticing that Lion caught on to that crucial detail he himself had overlooked. Checking out the major props his big bro Nicholas Lixel was showing, they're totally stoked on the Youngblood's idea and are hella hyped to get baking ASAP. Under the bright afternoon sun, the group is pumped up and ready to kick off the production of fresh bread in the village mill and on the workbench. They're separating high-quality whole wheat flour from a star and extra virgin olive oil from a 2-star chef. Lion evaluates the ingredients and thinks that the 2-star olive oil is going to bring an incredibly rich and amazing flavor to the bread dough. Nicholas announces they'll be making a classic whole wheat bread recipe, assuring that the preparation is pretty easy, tasty, and the kids are gonna love it. With gloves on and a lot of enthusiasm, the baker instructs that first, they should only do a small test batch to start. He explains that the first step is to knead the flour, blending the right amounts of salt, biological yeast, and fresh milk. Then, the dough should be placed in a bowl greased with olive oil to rest and rise properly. Once the dough has doubled in size, they remove the excess air from its interior and add crushed sunflower seeds to the mix. Nicholas shapes the dough into a perfectly round and even loaf on the floured surface. After completing the first stage of the preparation process, Lixel observes the dough's ready and thinks amazed that the process seems very simple and incredibly easy compared to magic. Nicholas suddenly asks Lixel if he's finished his part, leaving the young boy amazed that his older brother has already completed everything. Lixel says he needs more time to get used to it, and Nicholas agrees, saying he's gonna throw the other dough in the oven first. A little later, Nicholas carefully opens the big wood-fired oven to check the results of the first batch of bread. However, a dry sound reveals that one of the breads has gone up in flames, turning into a hard, black ball. Nicholas explains that adding more fuel just made it burn, but he consoles the kid by saying his other loaf turned out awesome for a first try. Next up, the mill owner gives a thumbs up that Lion's bread is also fully baked. They cautiously approach to take a peek and see how the big brother's batch turned out. As they open the oven, a golden, blinding light radiates from the perfect loaves, leaving everyone in awe of the scene. The system reveals that Leon whipped up a perfect whole wheat loaf and bumped his cooking skills up to level to apprentice. Nicholas stares down at the tray of golden, glistening breads, totally blown away by how the young blood managed to whip up something so on point. The baker's jaw drops in awe, asking how he managed to do that, but Lion just smirks and says he didn't do anything out of the ordinary. Lion thinks he baked the bread with care for the kids, hoping they could enjoy the tastiest meal possible today. He made cuts on top to make it look more appealing for the kids, and Nicholas is left speechless by such consideration. Lion's giving props to his brother's skills, while Nicholas is like, I was totally off on those kids at first, and he's vibing on the sincerity of both of them helping out the orphans. Does it bother you guys to keep baking on your own for a bit? I've got a place I gotta roll to ASAP. Leon agrees without a hitch, apologizing for taking up too much of his time, but the mill owner assures him it was no trouble at all. The guy is rushing out, telling the brothers he'll be back ASAP to lend a hand. Lixel thinks he should have been slammed, but Leon chills him out, saying he needs to get back ASAP and keep the dough rising. Determined, Lixel warns that he's gonna bring his A game so he doesn't get taken down by his brother, and Leon laughs, saying he won't make it easy for him either. The brothers keep on baking batch after batch of bread, which is causing their culinary progress to skyrocket. They're working in perfect harmony and having a blast, whipping up dozens of freshly baked, fragrant loaves for the charity drive. Suddenly, the mill owner returns and swings open the doors, loudly announcing that he's back to join the gang. Leon's left stunned to see him back so soon, but ends up stumbling over his words when he notices something's off about the mill entrance. He freaks out, realizing Nicolas didn't come alone, but with a huge crew of locals right behind him. The woman explains that Nicolas was deeply moved by their kindness and that everyone decided to come and help with the donation, even if it was just a little bit. She says her husband wanted to come to reconnect with their kids, but he was tied up at the forge, so she came instead, worried they'd blow her cover. Leon quickly gives her a hush sign with his finger on his lips, telling her to keep quiet. Meanwhile, a local woman drops a massive, heavy duffel bag of provisions right on the dirt path. The other locals start piling up crates of fresh milk, sacks of grain, and other generous donations in a hurry. A woman with incredible strength surprises everyone by lifting a massive food sack with her own hands and tossing it to the ground with ease. They're left stunned by her strength, saying she used to go toe-to-toe with bears in her youth, and that's a genuine God-given gift. Lixel beams with amazement at the massive donations, and Lion chimes in, grinning, saying that the people of this fiefdom are super kind-hearted. As he watches everyone come together, Lixel feels ashamed for focusing solely on his own interests, rather than genuinely considering what's best for the orphanage. He looks at his older brother smiling, and thinks that once Leon's health is back to normal, things will be looking up. The younger one gazes at his brother with total admiration, convinced that his sibling is truly destined for greatness in the future. After a few hours, they finally arrive at the orphanage, run by the temple under the sunny skies of the family's territory. As she sees the mountain of provisions being unloaded, the director of the place is overcome with emotion and thanks them immensely for the generous help. She's all excited to ask how she can repay such kindness, but the kids just shrug it off, saying they're stoked to be able to lend a hand. The kids are stoked, running towards the sweet smell, while the director tells them to give the visitors a proper welcome. They are also blown away by the fresh, clean clothes they got from the donation, and they're celebrating the good news with a happy attitude. The director suggests they hand out the bread to the kids while she gets the donations organized, and the brothers happily take on the task. Leon crouches with a smile, handing out a fresh loaf to each child, receiving enthusiastic thanks from all the little orphans there. As he listens to the kids' celebration in the background, Leon's face lights up with joy, but his expression suddenly turns curious as he notices something off-key nearby. He spots a timid little kid standing under the garden tree's shadow, watching the bread handout with hesitation. When he realizes he's been caught, the kid quickly spins around and takes off running, leaving Leon intrigued by the kid's evasive reaction. He approaches the director and asks who that kid was who just took off, and she responds worriedly that his name is Peter Pede. Sorry if I came off as rude, and he's still so young he doesn't know how to react to acts of kindness. So Lion watches the little kid run off into the distance and mutters to himself about the kid's skittish and suspicious behavior as a young orphan. Not long after, they wrap up the bread distribution, and the director mentions that almost all the kids have been fed there already. Notice the young master is grabbing a basket and getting ready to walk, inquiring curiously where he's headed at the moment. Lion turns around with a gentle smile on his face and simply says he's heading after Peter, because he's the only one who still hasn't scored his bread yet. The director explains that Peter's adoption was rejected 3 times because he's a total introvert, and ever since, he's been ghosting any kind of donation. Lion looks on from a distance and thinks the kid's about the same age as the tanner's kids in the village. Noticing the kid's legs are scrunched up, he's worried the little guy's too skinny from not eating right. Suddenly, Leon approaches him slowly and calls out his name in a super soft tone, making the little guy jump a bit at the sound. Leon sits down on the grass next to him, says he brought something super tasty, and asks if he doesn't want to take a bite, since it's the only piece left. He shows him the warm bread and raves about the fresh, slightly sweet dough, trying to pique the little Peter's curiosity and appetite. However, Lion's plan works like a charm, and a loud growl of hunger echoes through the garden's silence, leaving the kid feeling embarrassed. Lion smirks and comments that his stomach has just proven he's starving, leaving Peter to lie in the grass, embarrassed. He thinks it's just a kid's tantrum, and he'd play along, but he realizes Peter's rejecting food even when he's starving for a different reason. The young one gets it. That kid's gonna need some time to get comfortable around him and open up his heart. Meanwhile, the other volunteers are saying their goodbyes and thanking him for the long day, getting ready to head into Peter's temple mansion, who ended up crashing on the warm grass. He slowly opens his eyes after waking up from a brief nap under the tree. He's relieved that all the visitors must have left by now, grumbling under his breath that those people are just a bunch of phonies. He's griping that the volunteers only do charity for personal satisfaction and never stick around. But he freaks out when Lion asks if he's already up. The kid freaks out, asking why he's still there, and Lion just smirks, saying he slept like a baby and didn't want to wake him up. He asks if Peter doesn't want to eat. Ian says he's starving, offering the kid half of his fresh bread in a super sweet manner. The kid gives him a sassy look, making a dismissive sound, and Lion asks calmly if he's really gonna pass on eating. As the kid remains silent, Lion lets out a gentle sigh and decides to change his approach, opting for a more persuasive tactic. He's got a tight grip on the soft bread, tearing it in half with the dry snap that sends the little guy's eyes wide with fright. Lion takes a big bite out of his share, and little Peter's eyes go wide with confusion, asking what the heck he's doing there. He's eating the bread, dude, because you didn't want it, and I'm not gonna waste it. Little dude's freaking out. The kid stammers frantically as he watches the food disappear quickly, and he yells loud, flailing his hands in the direction of the remaining piece of bread. He snatches the other half of the bread from Lion's hand, nervously exclaiming that he's going to devour it, causing the young one to chuckle slightly at the success of his little trap with the first bite. Peter's eyes light up in awe, and he's totally stoked by the flavor, admitting with a gleam in his eyes that the bread is off the chain. Y devra el pan con un apetito voraz, mientras Lion lo observa con una sonrisa paternal y satisfecha. Peter turns shyly with his mouth full of crumbs, and Leon extends his hand to offer him another slice of warm bread to the little guy. He smiles kindly and says that piece was actually his own share, but insists on handing it over to him in its entirety. As he gazes into the young master's kind eyes, Peter can't help but wonder how this whole situation and this kid seems so offbeat and one of a kind. The kid figures that bread doesn't have any magic ingredients, just a basic, everyday recipe. Despite its simplicity, the young orphan wonders what's behind the common bread's surprisingly amazing taste. Remember, charity visits are usually just empty theatrics, rich folks pretending to care, but not really putting in the effort. He's got a bitter taste in his mouth, remembering all the phonies who pretended to care, but ended up dumping him back at the orphanage, claiming he never really wanted them. The kid chews on bread, silently sobbing, and thinks bitterly that all adults are lying sacks of promises that always end up breaking them. Leon notices the sadness in his eyes and asks calmly if Peter knew a pretty wild fact about human behavior. He says that down in the dumps adults tend to skip meals and then regret it, giving the kid props for eating so well despite feeling down. The young master smiles warmly and confesses that while baking that batch of bread early this morning, he really hoped someone would get a kick out of eating it. He's stoked to see the little guy enjoying his meal, leaving Peter pretty hyped and touched by the kid's affection. Leon jokes around and asks if he's crying, and the little guy stutters, looking all bummed, saying it's just because the bread is straight fire. The young guy asks with a smile if that's really the reason for the tears, and Peter looks away, shyly nodding his head in confirmation. Setting aside his pride, the little guy finally whispers a heartfelt thank you, still holding tight to the rest of his snack. The young lion extends his pinky and promises with a big grin that he's gonna whip up even more delicious bread to hook him on his next visit. Peter's eyes widen in surprise at the vow, but the young master encourages him, assuring him that he's never broken a single promise in his life. He winks at the kid, telling him to keep that promise in mind, assuring him he'll keep his word straight up. They intertwine their pinky fingers, sealing the deal, and Peter promises with a grin that next time he'll be downing 2 whole loaves. Lion playfully teases him, joking that he should eat 3 and that he'll have to make a lot of bread, causing the boy to chuckle in a playful way. In the distance, in the mansion's garden, the orphanage director watches the whole scene with her hands on her hips, and she's deeply moved by the young man's attitude. She hadn't seen the little Peter crack a smile that genuine and unfiltered in ages. Lion invites Peter to hit the playground with his squad, while the woman is eating her words for neglecting them with the whole routine excuse. She's genuinely impressed that a genuinely good and sincere person like that kid deserves all the best blessings from the universe. Under the vibrant hues of sunset, the kids are waving goodbye, and the brothers are doing the same, eager for them to come back soon. The orphanage director asks them to wait in and inquires if they can stick around a bit longer, cause she's not ready to let them go after such a beautiful act of kindness. She reveals that she's been in touch with the priest on the double, and tells them that he's personally coming today to pray for the kids in the area. She suggests they receive a blessing from the priest before leaving the brothers completely blown away by the opportunity. Lixel's all smiles in his head about the plan's success, and he responds with some class, accepting the invite with a big thank you, no need to be rude. The director smiles satisfied with their response, and invites them politely to enter the orphanage building while waiting for their arrival. As they enter, the sound of galloping horse hooves on the path indicates that the temple priest is about to arrive. There, inside the carriage, the high priest. He adjusts his specs thoughtfully while taking in the view from the window. Lixel's concerned about his bro from the temple and suggests they table the meat, but Lion's all good with it. He just remembers something super important and time sensitive that I gotta handle back at the family estate pronto. Lion tells the kid not to worry and to enjoy his time, enthusiastically dismissing him as is his daily baking practice schedule. Lion needs a sacred phrase, and it wouldn't be good if the priest had bad intentions towards them. He decides it's better to size the priest up personally first, and greets him smooth when he opens the door and steps into the room. The high priest presents himself as a servant of the Creator, wishing divine favor to remain with that anonymous benefactor so generous. He heard from the director that the young man wanted to stay anonymous, and Lixel confirms that's the case. Lixel notes the priest is young and thinks, having come from so far just to pray, he can't be some ordinary dude in the temple. He's grateful for the massive help the temple received thanks to their charity, but Lixel humbly responds that it's all about the collective effort of the village. The young one confesses that the one who really dedicated themselves from the heart was his older brother, revealing that the idea of the breads came entirely from him. The priest asks if he's talking about the brother who had to head back early because he wasn't feeling too great, and Lixel confirms with a heavy heart. He's got a death grip on his hands, revealing that his brother's been a fragile kid since birth and still battles a serious condition. Lixel confesses he wasn't there just for charity, but with a premeditated plan to bring his ailing brother along. Smile warmly and ask Liz to chill, genuinely sorry that a good and charitable person is going through a rough patch. The cleric spills the beans in a hushed tone that he also had to sneak out without the temple's knowledge to make it to this orphanage. Today, Lixel notices the man's serious expression and nervously wonders if the priest is rejecting treatment, unable to decipher what's on his mind. However, Licht breaks the tense silence by suggesting they meet again in exactly 3 days from then. Can a young man return to the same spot with his older brother so they can do the checkup? The next morning, in the Grand Asteri family mansion, Lixel's desperate cry echoes loudly through the halls, calling out to his older brother. He walks into the lab, chewing out his brother for pulling an all-nighter with a fragile health like that, but Lion says he just couldn't catch a wink. Lion asks curiously why the rush, and Lixel excitedly reveals that the temple priest agreed to take a closer look at his health. Lion's surprised to learn about the review, and the kid explains that the priest wants to help him because he's deeply grateful for the help to the orphanage. The kid thinks he's just got a weak body, and that his monocrash issue is long gone, but in reality, he's got no underlying health problems. He even picked up some physical strength lately from working out in the weeds, but he figures that offer is too good to pass up and decides to go through with the review. Lion says calmly that he accepts the invite, making the little bro draw a huge smile of happiness and ask enthusiastically if he's dead serious. Lionel comments that weirdly the priest asks for the meeting to be held at dawn, leaving the older brother a bit taken aback. 3 days later at the orphanage, Lion's eyes widen in surprise as he spots a high-quality holy water bottle, wondering how a young priest like that still buys into that. Lixel walks in with the clergyman, catching the older brother's attention, who quickly turns around to greet Leon. He gives a respectful nod, greeting the priest, who returns the favor with a gentle smile, wishing them both blessings from above. With a calm and welcoming demeanor, may blessings be with both of you always. With a calm and welcoming demeanor, Leech invites them to get comfy before they get down to business. Now seated in the room, Lion brings up the topic and says he's got a burning question in his mind, getting the priest permission to ask. He's wondering if there's a specific reason why you guys agreed to meet at the crack of dawn, and the priest looks like he's lost in thought. Licht drops a cryptic bombshell, revealing he had a majorly significant dream about both of you recently, leaving both of you totally gobsmacked. He explains that high-ranking clergy often get celestial messages and revelations through prophetic dreams. Known as prophetic Lixel, he curiously asks what kind of dream that was, and the high priest chuckles modestly, saying it was nothing to write home about. He told him that he dreamed of kids sleeping peacefully in a field of flowers under the protection of 2 brothers, who looked a bit off. The cleric says he woke up feeling pretty stoked about that dream, and that's why he wanted to meet them, admitting he also needed to confirm a personal hunch. He wanted to get a read on them personally to see what kind of people they were, leaving Lixel on edge while Lion's smiling. The cleric examines them with attention and thinks that the younger brother is clearly a young wizard with the refined posture and vocabulary. He's got a hunch there from the Asteri crew, and he's low-key worried about espionage, so he decides to get to the bottom of it by checking out the older bro's vitals. He asks if he can start the medical exam, and Lixel agrees politely, saying he'll wait outside the room during the procedure. Leech approaches the young guy in the armchair and announces he's about to get the green light from the young boss to get this procedure rolling. The high priest extends his gloved hands and begins to conjure a brilliant and intense sacred healing magic over the young man. As the high priest starts casting the sacred healing magic, Leech suddenly freezes in his tracks, spooked by a totally wild and unexpected reaction. He's all confused, wondering if he messed up the blessing, but he's also getting salty about why the kid's body isn't showing any signs of change. The priest starts sweating coldly with nervousness and wonders anxiously if he made a stupid mistake during the healing process. Leech's mouth drops in shock, unable to believe it, while Lion responds calmly with a serene expression. The young master beams from ear to ear, assuring him in a super chill tone that his body's already feeling ridiculously better. Lion says with a gentle tone that that's more than enough blessing for today, but the priest stammers, nervously trying to dispute it. Lichard reflects anxiously that there are only 3 possible reasons why someone's body wouldn't change a thing with the high priest's blessing. The reasons would be that a higher-ranking wizard rejects the healing, that the person's health is already spotless, or, lastly, a tragic case. The last option would be that the patient was born with a short shelf life, but Lion cuts him off, thanking him for the immediate well-being. Liz takes a firm stance and calls him brother, promising that if he ever needs his help in any tough situation. Without hesitation, the tall priest grabs the young master's 2 hands with a lot of force and determination, surprising the kid with his attitude. With a whole lot of grit and conviction, he's taken aback by the kid's attitude. He's asking Leon to head to the temple and declare his name every time he's in so much pain he can't even sleep, leaving him stumped. With the fire of determination in his eyes, he assures Leon he'll be there for him, no matter what, and Leon accepts the promise, a bit spooked. Leon thanks him sincerely for the huge consideration, and the priest responds with kindness that he'll always be ready to take him back, no questions asked. The young man walks back towards the exit, while Leech watches him disappear with a rather serious, thoughtful, and worried expression. Lion listens to the last blessing from the cleric and scratches his head, confused on the outside, not understanding why that situation left him so deep in thought. As the day breaks under a stunning, bright rainbow in the sky, The focus shifts back to the imposing castle of the esteemed Aster and Lixel family. He's stoked to see his big bros in a much better headspace, saying that the pre-dawn stroll was totally worth it for both of them. Lion thinks the sacred magic was top-notch, as it completely wiped out all the muscle aches and shoulder stiffness caused by baking all night. Notice Lixel's dark circles and ask if the little guy is running on fumes. But the kid puts on a brave face and says he's good to go. Lixel says he's got to get his morning mana training in, leaving the older bro totally shook by the routine. Lion complains that he was up all night and warns that pushing himself like that is going to end up doing a number on the kid's health. Sylvia emerges with her usual dark energy and muses that the heir's training regimen has been looking even more packed lately. Lion expresses concern for his brother's health, and she suggests talking to the patriarch about it when she goes to finalize the coming-of-age ceremony. The ruler completes her thought, saying that Patriarch Patrick has been pretty deep in thought lately, sparking a quick idea in Lion's mind. She then suggests that the young one pay his grandfather a visit with some sweet treat, which gets the young love to enthusiastically agree with the idea. Not long after, they meet up in the spacious and spotless castle kitchen to get cracking on whipping up the special dessert recipe for the old man. Leon focuses entirely on kneading and stretching the soft dough onto the wooden table, using a pastry roller with considerable skill. He thanks you for the awesome idea and thinks the cookies are on point, but then he's like, wait a minute, does my grandpa even dig sweets? She corrects him, reminding him that his name is Elvia, and assures him that Patrick will eat anything that comes from his grandson, so he doesn't need to worry. The young guy flashes a wide grin and responds that since his grandpa's gonna chow down, he's really hoping he gets to savor and enjoy the sweet treat big time. In the middle of the recipe prep, Leon lets out a high-pitched exclamation of surprise, recalling a crucial detail that could take the dessert to the next level. The disguised ruler watches him with a keen and curious eye, trying to anticipate what the young one plans to do differently there. He places some dried sweet potatoes on the workbench, and Elvia asks, taken aback, if he's seriously planning to add that to the dough. He's gonna put some dried kamades on the dough, and his grandma's gonna be like, you're gonna make your grandpa chomp down on this, and then be all like, this is straight fire. He'll use the finely chopped sweet potato to give the cookies a natural sweetness, so his grandpa can chow down without any guilt or baggage. The young master cracks a satisfied smile at the idea and excitedly announces that the next step in the special pastry prep is ready to roll. As he shapes the cookies into cute star shapes, oh man, he thinks he should ask the mute blacksmith to make special cutters afterwards. Slap the trays filled with decorated cookies into the castle's oven, nice and toasty, so they can start baking and browning to perfection. The young guy is stoked when he takes them out of the oven, and the system reveals he successfully whipped up star-shaped banana and sweet potato cookies, which surprise him by giving him a vigor-boosting effect, while she's raving that he basically nailed the recipe solo. She playfully suggests he try a cookie to test the final flavor of the recipe, and Lion enthusiastically accepts the invitation. As he takes a bite, he exclaims that the flavor is off the charts, better than any chocolate cookie from his past life, leveling up in the culinary game. She explains that the sweets help combat mental fatigue and assures her grandfather that he'll love the smooth and balanced flavor of that new recipe. He's super grateful for Elvia's help in the kitchen, and she humbly says she was just doing her job, suggesting they package the cookies in jars. Lion gives a heads up that he's got the sweet treats covered, telling her to take a load off and leaving the disguised boss looking a bit caught off guard. The young one gives a sly smile and reveals with an animated glance that he still needs to prep some major stuff in the kitchen before wrapping things up. He turns around and quietly logs into his gaming virtual system, making sure not to open his inventory in front of the new hire. Having reached level 3 in the kitchen, new recipes emerged, and Lion decides to whip up a special drink to create the perfect blend. He scans the holographic menu, psyched to select the special recipe called Training Support Drink to whip it up. Lion analyzes the training drink recipe and thinks it'll be a real hit with his grandpa and Lixel. He thinks the ingredients seem familiar, but decides not to sweat it and focuses on making the perfect combo for the cookies. Lion gets a whiff of the orange up close and celebrates the fact that all the fruits he's gonna use are straight fire, super fresh. With all the ingredients ready and his apron on, the young chef is psyched to start cooking up the recipe. Scrub those fruits down, slice each one into thin rounds, and get the lifeblood of the dish simmering low and slow. As soon as the fruits are cooked through, the young chef adds the star anise and waits for the citrus flavor to be fully extracted. When he catches the sweet scent rising from the kitchen, he pours the entire hot liquid through a strainer to filter out the juice. After straining the red mix into a glass, Lion adds a dash of rosemary oil to give it the final touch of freshness. The training drink is ready, and Lion notes that it's a dead ringer for the traditional hot wine with spices recipe. Tasting the result, he finds the amazing flavor and decides to pair the drink with the cookies he just baked. The system announces the creation of Lion's special drink game, which helps reduce fatigue and improves training efficiency. Unlock an unprecedented achievement by crafting your first full meal and earn 3,000 gold as the system's reward. Satisfied with the final result of his baking, Lion takes off his apron and leaves it on the kitchen counter, with the shiny tray of sweets and drink in hand. The young master decides it's the perfect time to pay his grandfather a visit. Patrick is seated in his office when he hears Lion's voice asking if he's slammed right now. The patriarch asks, "What's eating at you?" And he's fuming, wondering if the mansion staff are even bothering to cater to him. His grandson Lion is chuckling at the situation, explaining that it's not exactly like that, because he personally brought everything to give him a sweet surprise. He brought everything personally to give him a nice surprise. Place the tray on the table and explain that you made the drink using an old potion and baked cookies, so you could both eat together. Surprised by the effort, Patrick asks if he really prepared all that. Lion confirms it in a simple manner. The young master smiles and says he thought it'd be a pretty cool way to show off his little culinary skills to his grandpa. The young one politely asks him to try the sweet treat, and the old man silently gazes at the adorable bear-shaped cookie. Patrick takes a bite of the cookie and is completely blown away by how the sweet treat just melts in his mouth. The patriarch feels the sweet aroma of the sweet potatoes spreading and loves the sugar balance, which brings an incredible sense of well-being. The system's going off the rails because Lion's cooking competition just took it to the next level, making someone enjoy their food that much more. Patrick suddenly switches gears and tells his grandson to cut the crap, leaving Leon totally baffled by the reaction. The grandfather claims he wouldn't have come all this way just to drop off food and orders him to spill the beans, leaving the kid laughing awkwardly for being caught. Leon glances at the tray and quietly mentions that he heard it said that his coming-of-age ceremony should be held very soon. The kid suggests giving Lixel a well-deserved break till the big day, and the old man asks why he's making such a sudden request, and the old man asks the kid what's behind that sudden request. He explains that everyone's going to be participating in the party, but he's finding his little brother's daily training schedule is way too grueling. Lion asks to dial it back on the little one's training schedule so the whole family can participate in the event, leaving his grandpa looking deep in thought. The patriarch tries to maintain a firm stance, but inside he's stoked to see his grandson turned into an incredibly attentive young man. The old man thinks both brothers could be vying for clan leadership, but he's stoked to see they've got that brotherly love. Patrick agrees and says he's gonna spring the kid, making Lion beam with gratitude, although the old man asks if that's all he's after. Patrick insists on knowing if his grandson doesn't want to ask for anything else for the coming-of-age ceremony, leaving the young one confused. Leon immediately assures that he doesn't need anything else, and the old man wonders who's the odd one out for not showing greed with the gift. It's because the coming-of-age ceremony is more than just a traditional rite of passage for the Empire's youth. Getting the young one's most extravagant desired gift was the most refined way the nobles used to flaunt their wealth. The old man's intrigued by what that really means, seeing his grandson turn down any gift. Behind all that modesty, Patrick assumes in his mind that Lion is actually angling for the old man to pick out a truly spectacular gift himself. Feeling the terrifying pressure suddenly radiating from his grandfather, Lion says remorsefully that he's gonna ghost in pieces out. As soon as the office door closes, the patriarch lets out a thoughtful murmur while savoring his hot cup, rests his chin, and seriously starts planning what he needs to do to get the best possible coming-of-age gift. Meanwhile, Leon walks calmly back through the palace hallways, relieved to have wrapped up the whole sibling drama. In his own room, Lixel's surrounded by stacks of documents and looks pretty beat from all the homework piled up on his desk. Suddenly, Leon flings open the door, yelling out the kid's nickname, scaring the little guy and sending papers flying everywhere. The older brother bursts out laughing and jokes that he had no idea his little bro was such a hot mess on a daily basis. Lixel gets mortified with the messy room and confesses he never wanted his bro to see him like that. When asked about the reason for the visit, Leon smiles and says he prepared a special snack to help ease his brother's fatigue. Both settle into the living room sofa, and a young wizard takes a bite of the curious bear cookie to test his big brother's recipe. The little guy's eyes light up in shock, and he's totally stoked by the treat, saying it's straight fire. He's giving props to his big bro's mad skills, and says he's been noticing his talent since he whipped up those temple breads. Leon tells the kid to take it easy until the coming-of-age ceremony, saying he already got the patriarch's permission and that he noticed his brother was totally exhausted from taking care of his older brother. Tell the kid to chill because I just got the patriarch's seal of approval and I can see he's totally spent. His heart's melting because of his big bro's TLC. Lixel smiles sweetly and thanks him immensely for all that love and affection. Lixel spills the tea that his exhaustion wasn't due to studying, making Leon instantly think the little bro's getting love letters. While Leon wonders if the kid's already got a thing for girls, Lixel clears the air, saying the real reason is his own coming-of-age ceremony. The young master lets out a relieved sigh as he understands that his brother was referring to the clan's coming-of-age ritual. That traditional ritual is known as the Library Labyrinth, a magical test that guides the participant towards their ideal spellcasting. The younger one explains that, although it's a breeze for those following the magical guidance, the labyrinth hides a special object at the end of his path. Thinking the kid is only worried that he doesn't have mana, Leon tries to calm him down, saying the ritual is just a formality, but Lixel gets pretty tense and explains his real concern is actually Lion's wardrobe. However, Lixel gets quite tense and explains that his major concern is actually because of the clothes Lion will have to wear, making a completely astonished face. When he finds out about the clothes, he asks curiously what's wrong with the event's wardrobe. Lixel. He asks if his brother has already seen the official suit that their grandfather prepared especially for the big day, and Lion responds that he hasn't. The youngest slaps the table with the sketch of the outfit design and dramatically reveals that his grandfather has a major fashion flaw. He confesses that the old man has no sense of style, and Lion enters total desperation at seeing the bizarre and colorful design of the garment. The young master is shocked and asserts that he can't wear that at all, and Lixel agrees it would be a total embarrassment in front of everyone. They freak out, unable to comprehend how the patriarch used to dress well, only to discover that Sylvia was the one reigning in his fashion disasters. Leon mentally thanks Sylvia for saving them and decides to find a solution so the whole family can rock matching, high-end outfits. Wearing his hoodie disguise, Leon pays a visit to Leah and is greeted with a lot of excitement and enthusiasm by the kids in the area. He greets the little ones warmly and offers a nice package of cookies he carefully prepared himself for the visit. As the little ones happily savor the precious treats, Leah thanks the gift and asks curiously what the young man brought. So far, Lion reveals that he needs a special favor and mentions the skilled tailor who used to volunteer at the orphanage back in the day. She asks if she could hook him up with that tailor, leaving the woman pretty stunned and intrigued by the sudden ask. The young guy explains that he observed the guy's work at the orphanage and was totally blown away by his insane sewing skills. He remembers how the pro would perfectly tailor outfits for the kids and create gorgeous suits out of scraps. The young master explains that he desperately needs someone with that talent, and Leah responds that it's possible to help, but she makes a small caveat. Lion asks if there's a catch with the guy, and she says mysteriously that the young one will understand everything just fine once he gets there. Following Lee's instructions, the young master walks through a desolate and rubble-filled area until he spots an old wooden structure in the distance. He stops in front of the entrance and eyes a dusty old facade, wondering if he's actually at the right address. Suddenly, the busted sign comes crashing down, making a loud noise and leaving the kid even more on edge about the whole situation. When he opens the door, Lion finds a dark hallway filled with mannequins, and is weirded out that some genius is working here. He politely called out to someone in a place where someone so talented works. He politely called out to someone in the room and almost jumped out of his skin when a figure emerged silently from the shadows to welcome him. The man rebels under bright lights and asks in a super dramatic tone if he's some high-maintenance client, letting out a terrified scream from the young guy. The tailor analyzes the visitor and asks surprised if he's not the kid he knew from the orphanage. Despite the different hair and eye color, Lion apologizes for not mentioning it earlier and confesses that he's the heir to the Asteri, but was dressed up that day for some reasons. The man smiles understandingly and says everything's cool, assuring he gets that a young high roller's gotta have his own reasons. Next, he asks what would bring a noble of such stature to his humble shop, and Lion responds that he's looking for a top-notch tailor. A family of his stature shouldn't be hitting up a hack like you for your services. He quickly recovers from the shock and invites the young master to come on in and get comfortable so they can chat properly. Lion spots grandiose awards on a dusty shelf and recognizes a high-end fashion trophy from the Empire's elite. The host offers a seat and says he's gonna brew some tea, while Lion suggests they split some cookies he brought along. As he pours the hot liquid into chipped cups, the guy apologizes for the dump state, but the kid's all no biggie. Leon offers the cookies, saying he whipped them up with his own hands, leaving the tailor's jaw dropped in shock. The guy grabs a cute teddy bear cookie and recalls the young dude's incredible bread he donated to the orphanage a while back. He's curious to see if the sweets taste as good as the bread, so he accepts with a smile and takes a generous bite of the cookie. The guy lets out a high-pitched yell of pleasure and is totally stoked by the perfect crunch of the treat, finding the flavor straight up formidable. He feels the crunchy texture melt instantly in his mouth and compares the onset of the flavor to the purity of a wide-eyed innocent kid. Just then, the incredible flavor combo blows his mind, morphing into something entirely off the chain. The tailor fantasizes about a prince who falls for a country girl, feeling the flavor run through his heart like his first love. He's getting all dramatic, thinking that just calling it delicious would be doing it a disservice. Over the moon, the guy yells with his eyes wide open, saying that this simple cookie is a straight-up masterpiece. Andrew reflects in silence that the young man is full of mysterious contradictions, while Leon breathes a sigh of relief seeing that the man enjoyed the sweets. The tailor wipes away tears, stoked, and thanks for the sweet treat, while the young master smiles and asks if it hit the spot. The guy's almost crying tears of joy, and he's stoked to say that trying that sweet treat gave him endless inspiration. Andrew says he'll give it to you straight. No chaser, no secrets, no nothing, as a thank you for the visit in the grub. The tailor assumes Leon wants him to make his coming-of-age clothes and confirms right away that he's got the skills to get the job done. He's got the skills to craft patterns, cut fabrics, and deliver like nobody's business. But he's got cold feet in says there's a major catch to it. He's got this, but he's hesitant in says there's a major catch to it. Andrew fears Leon will be the laughingstock among the nobles for wearing clothes made by him, leaving the young man intrigued and asking the reason behind it. The man reveals with sadness that he's the illegitimate son of a noble family, making Leon understand the foolish prejudice he suffers in the Empire. Leon learns about how the nobles boycotted him due to prejudice and thinks it's a total non-issue what these high and mighty folks think of him. The tailor suggests lying about the creator of the suit, but Lion cuts him off and asks to see some of the clothes he's already made in the workshop first. Andrew warns that only plebeian garments are left in his inventory, but the kid says it doesn't matter because he's only judging the craftsmanship. The tailor pulls back a large gray curtain to reveal his vintage creations, leaving the young heir completely blown away by the scene. Andrew says those are the basic pieces he sells to the locals, but the young heir's jaw drops when he notices the finish is flawless. Multiple screens from the system pop up in front of Leon, revealing that the everyday outfits have a 2-star rating due to the quality of the craftsmanship. As the tailor rues his mundane reality, the young master remains awestruck, taking in the perfection of each piece. There, Leo realizes that if the man managed to create 2-star suits using such basic fabrics, it means his skills are on the cusp of perfection. Just imagine the utterly insane level of threads he'd be able to weave together if he got his hands on some rare top-shelf fabrics. With conviction, Leon calls the tailor and declares with enthusiasm that he really wants to rock a bespoke suit signed by the one and only Andre at his special event. The guy is worried about the kid's rep, but Lion's got his back, assuring him nobody's gonna say squat, and all he needs is a yes or no on the challenge. The young boss raises 3 fingers and convinces him that he'll need exactly 3 bespoke suits ready to roll for the big day. Andre is drooling at the bold proposal, and the kid straight up asks him if he's really feeling that confident about pulling it off. Lion assures him he'll take full responsibility and tells the man to focus on having the ambition to take on a gig this massive. The tailor's hands are shaking with excitement at the thought of focusing solely on his craft, and he knows no tailor in their right mind would turn down an offer like this. He takes on the challenge with enthusiasm and asks the kid to give the orders, making Leon crack a satisfied smile as he sees he made the right call. Andre pulls out a pen animatedly and asks hastily, what are the details and what kind of clothes exactly is the young guy gonna want to commission? The young heir describes his fashion demands to the tailor, who frantically tries to capture the complex style nuances of the heir apparent. Suddenly, the tailor freaks out when he realizes the patriarch himself, Patrick, is gonna rock his threads, and frantically asks if the kid is dead serious about that. The kid repeats with a calm tone that the noble's disdain has nothing to do with his family, and that he doesn't give a damn about those palace politics. Andre calms down and agrees that no one in the empire would have the audacity to badmouth the esteemed Asura family, which even rivals the monarchy. The young master confirms with a smile, and the tailor focuses all his attention on the design table to start sketching out the clothes he'll make. With a resolute gaze, Andre picks up the pen and swears on his heart that he'll give his absolute all to craft everything perfectly. The guy's got the perfect design locked in his head and asks about the fabric, prompting Leon to grab a big book from inventory to help him out. Leon reveals he brought the family fabric catalog, and the tailor nearly face plants on the floor at the side of the legendary book, which is every fashion designer's holy grail. The man says he could die happy just looking at that rarity, and asks with shaky hands if he's allowed to crack it open. Lion lets him examine the book calmly, and the tailor places his hand on the golden leather cover to start flipping through it. As soon as he flips through the catalog's pages, a golden magic glow bursts from within, leaving the guy gasping for air. The book showcases legendary fabrics from the continent, like elf hair, which is extremely rare since it's only spun by a select few elves. It also shows the fairy's whisper, a precious fabric manufactured by mages, leaving the tailor in shock to see that, in fact, they do exist. The kid asks if he liked any of the materials, and the tailor responds that the real issue is not having any fabric there that he doesn't love. Suddenly, the man freezes, his eyes wide open, as he rapidly comes across a specific sample in the book. Lion approaches curiously to check the fabric, and Andre recalls that, in the past, a high society dame was totally obsessed with rocking that same material. He's telling you it's impossible to find this material in the regular fabric market, and he's bummed there's no written info on it. The young heir places a hand on his chin and resolves to read the description of the system thoroughly to decipher the properties of that blue fabric. The system reveals that the fabric is called the Archmagus Unconditional Love, making the kid wonder if the material was created by his own grandfather. Lion recalls Andre mentioning a girl using the fabric, and piecing together the description, he starts to deduce the mysterious identity of her. He decides to use that special fabric for the matching outfits and asks if they can be made, getting a super enthusiastic response. Andre gets pumped up to take Leon's measurements when, out of nowhere, they hear loud thuds coming from behind the sewing shop door. A familiar voice calls out to the older brother, saying he's running a bit behind, grabbing some necessary supplies for the sewing job. Leon's confused by the mention of supplies, and the person outside chimes in with a skeptical tone, saying things seem pretty wild on Lion Street. And Andre are spooked by Lixel ordering from outside to bring all the stuff inside pronto. As they open the door, they're met with a line of gondolas stacked with exotic fabrics and servants unloading everything in the deserted street. Lixel shows up, grinning, and says he heard whispers that his big bro had his eye on a tailor for the big day. He's going all out to help him with that, since it's Lion's one and only coming-of-age ceremony. With a very noble posture, the young wizard concludes by saying that this level of high-end support was the bare minimum he could offer his brother. Leonor is disapproving of Lixel's extravagance and asks if Andrew wants to use his own old tools. But the guy says no. The tailor is all about getting them to ditch their old gear for the brand new, high-end tools that just dropped. After the big delivery, Andrew thanks the young boss for his patience during the measurement process of his new formal wear. The tailor promises with all his heart that he'll bring his A game to create a real masterpiece, and the kid tells him to chill out. Next, Lion smiles friendly and asks if Andrew would be willing to teach him some sewing techniques, leaving the tailor and Ixel in shock at the idea. He asks if Andrew could teach him some sewing techniques, leaving the tailor and Ixel completely gobsmacked by the idea. The tailor tries to brush him off, saying that beginners get pretty rough with needles and machines, but the young guy assures him it's no big deal. The kid calms the pro down, saying he just wants a basic grasp of sewing, and Andre asks curiously what the real motive is. Leon thinks he needs to get a grasp on the techniques the tailor will use before he can truly appreciate the sweat and effort that goes into making his suits. He's got a lot to learn about the craftsmanship that goes into making these bespoke suits. Deeply moved by the noble client's consideration, Andrew gets stoked that every stitch and cut is a deliberate move. Touched by Lion's noble spirit, the tailor slaps his hand on his chest and promises to lay it all out for him. No holds barred. Andrew steps back to take the pixels measurements and tells Leon to get familiar with and test out all the new tools in the workshop. Time flies as the sun sets over the horizon, casting a beautiful orange hue over the feudal structures. The young master wanders among the mannequins, lost in thought, marveling at the craftsmanship of the tailor's art, which is a real trip to observe up close. He takes a worn-out pants pattern from the tailor and is blown away by how the guy managed to whip up such amazing clothes with subpar materials. Curious to put his newfound skills to the test, Lion holds the piece of fabric and excitedly wonders if he should give sewing a shot right now. Since he still hasn't mastered the basics and lacks the fundamentals, he decides that the best way to start practicing is by doing some manual stitching. Remember, he's got the artisan's repair kit stashed away, a real game changer he scored as a gift on his last visit to the magical shop in the fiefdom. The young master smirks mischievously and thinks that there wouldn't be a better opportunity than that to finally try out the special sewing kit. Lion holds the metal needle and lets out a surprised exclamation as he notices the magical tool instantly transforms in his hand. He's totally stoked to see the needle auto-threading and looking brand new every time he uses it. Sitting at the work table bathed in the fading light, the kid gets focused to make his first stitches in the sewing. He focuses his attention entirely on the needle and starts sewing the fabric manually with a lot of care under the soft light that enters through the window. The kid cracks a surprised grin when he realizes that manual sewing is way more fun than he thought it'd be. Despite thinking it'd be a drag working with something so small, Lion feels chill and notices his stitches are getting faster and more solid. To his surprise, bright guidelines pop up on the fabric, making the job a breeze, and he figures that's another sick feature of the magic kit. Finding it all a breeze, Lion's making rapid progress, and the system reveals that the cotton pants mold completion rate has already hit 80%. Lion freaks out when he hears Lixel knocking on the door, asking if he's done and apologizing for busting his concentration. The little one says he didn't want to disrupt his brother's focus, while Andrew cries with emotion, analyzing the flawless progress of the young beginner sewing. The tailor evaluates the cotton pants meticulously and exclaims, surprised that, despite some twisted stitches, the final result is on point. Suddenly, the tailor starts yelling and running around like a madman, leaving the two brothers Astery completely bewildered by the scene, exclaiming that manual stitching is the foundation of high-end fashion, and confessing that he almost forgot that principle by working only with prefabricated clothes, while Andre continues yelling enthusiastically in his own world of creative ideas. Lion lets out a chuckle as he sees the tailor got a little too hyped. The older brother suggests they head back to the mansion for now, and Lixel agrees it's a solid plan to bail. The younger brother explains in a serious tone that they can't afford to be late under any circumstances, since they've got a high-stakes dinner with the Big Cheese, Patrick, on the books. Inside the mansion, the butler enters the study and discreetly informs the patriarch that the two young masters have arrived and are waiting in the salon, engrossed in paperwork at the lit table. Patrick sets down his pen and responds calmly, saying he's already got the message from the butler. The patriarch rises and begins walking down the imposing, ornate corridors of the Gothic castle, heading towards the clan's opulent dining hall. The butler comments that it's pretty rare to see all three of them dining together at the table, and the patriarch agrees, saying that moments like these with family are necessary. The old man lets it be known that he doesn't work his ass off all the time for the hell of it, but because that's the only efficient way he knows to keep his precious grandkids safe. He's still getting hassled by the imperial court nobles, even after 50 years since the Demon War ended. Patrick says he just wanted to spend more time with his grandkids in his last years, but the butler chuckles, recalling that elite mages live almost as long as elves. As he approaches the grand double doors of the hall, the patriarch declares with authority that he can't leave now that his heirs are gathered. The old man wonders if his heart softened with age, or if it was due to the warm affection his grandson Leon showed him recently. As he looks at his two grandkids waiting at the decorated table, Patrick thinks he just wants to live in peace, surrounded by the greatest treasures his late daughter left behind. Leon warmly greets his grandfather at the entrance, while Patrick is dead set on keeping the true extent of his grandson's potential under wraps. As he looks at the over-the-top spread on the table, the young master thinks it's a wild overkill to have prepared all this for a simple dinner. Lixel explains with a grin that he made a special request to the head chef, since it's been ages since the whole family's been together for dinner. Leon recalls that back in the day, he used to skip meals or chow down on bland mush, while his grandfather was always dining at the imperial palace. He realizes that due to their absence in the mansion, little Lixel was probably eating solo dinners at that massive empty table every night. The older brother watches him with affection, thinking he must have been totally bummed out the whole time. Lion cracks a smile and says they should have nights like that more often, leaving the younger brother pretty shook and speechless. Meanwhile, Lixel looks at Lion and mistakenly thinks his older brother has been silently bearing a lot of loneliness for all these years. Lixel clenches his utensils tightly and decides he'll ask the patriarch to plan more chill nights and dinner hangouts so they can hang out more. As they exchange loving glances and a deep sense of understanding across the dinner table, both brothers want to shield the other from loneliness. Patrick finally takes his seat at the head of the dinner table, under the watchful eyes of the staff and his beloved grandkids. The patriarch gives the official nod to dig in, and the grandkids respond in unison with some fancy manners. Lion and his crew start chowing down. The mouth-watering grilled meats, specially prepared by the mansion's chef, Patrick breaks the silence by asking about Ixel's progress on his tasks, and the kid responds that he's on top of everything, no issues. The silence that follows is thick with tension, making the atmosphere feel stiff and formal among the three relatives. Patrick chews thoughtfully and grumbles to himself that his heir grandson didn't ask about his health or what kind of gift he'd like to win at the party, noticing the tense atmosphere and wanting to lighten up his younger brother. Leon decides to take the initiative and breaks the ice by calling his grandfather to steer the conversation in a completely new direction. He asks his grandfather directly if he's already made some fabric for their mom, leaving the patriarch and Ixel completely spooked. Faking senility, the patriarch takes a quick swig of wine and gives a somewhat dodgy response that he has no idea what his grandson is talking about. Noticing his grandfather's nervous reaction and cold sweat, Lion concludes that talking about his deceased mother makes the patriarch very uncomfortable. He's still chopping the meat, telling him he ran into a tailor today and found this one-of-a-kind fabric stashed away in the clan's mansion. Lion turns to Lixel and asks if he remembers that gorgeous, high-shine fabric he brought before, and the younger one confirms he's got a solid recollection of it. The young one repeats the words of the tailor Andrew about how a young high-society lady once adored that shimmering fabric in the past. He's deducing out loud that the mysterious high-society dame was their mom, since the legendary roll of fabric was stashed in the family storage room. The patriarch sits there lost in thought, eyes cast down, just mumbling that he gets it, while Leon notices the deep seriousness the matter has brought up. He thinks talking about his late mom is probably the biggest elephant in the room that the whole family's been trying to sweep under the rug. But he knows faking like it doesn't exist won't bring any real comfort, cause wounds only heal when everyone's talking openly about it. Determined to bridge the family gap, the young one decides to use the matching clothes project as a conversation starter to heal their relationship. Patrick lets out a sigh and breaks the silence, confirming with sincerity that Lion is dead on about the origin of the fabric. The patriarch spills the beans, revealing he was the one who whipped up that legendary fabric with his own magic hands, leaving the grandkids totally gobsmacked. Lion's eyes widen in shock as he asks if his grandfather really made the fabric solo, and questions what the real motive was behind it. The old man responds simply that there's no big secret, since as a father, it was only natural that he'd worry about his daughter's safety. She recalls the constant fear of her daughter getting hurt or the cold weather affecting her skin, so she wove the wool with maximum protection spells. The patriarch gazes wistfully and confesses, choked with emotion, that he never imagined the protective fabric he made for his daughter would still be around today. Lixel lowers his head, moved by the story, and thinks about the massive meaning of wearing a piece made with so much love for his mom. Patrick notices Lixel's shaky hands and feels guilty that his deep grief over the loss has left his two grandkids high and dry. Lion's all stoked that he's gonna rock the custom duds at the ceremony and asks if there's enough fabric, getting a solid guarantee from his grandma that they'll be all set. Patrick gets a shock when his grandson nonchalantly asks what day he'd be free to get measured by the tailor. The patriarch thinks the matching outfit would be just for the brothers, but Lion corrects him laughing and says his grandfather will also have to wear the same suit. Lion suggests inviting the tailor to the mansion to make it easier for his grandfather's packed schedule, and Patrick Finktozer's excellent idea immediately wins Lion over, and he begrudgingly gives in a bit. Giving his grandson the green light to run the whole tailoring project, however, he sees fit for the big bash, relieved to have gotten the okay, and avoid his grandfather from ruining the party's vibe with his lack of swag. Leon is stoked his plan came together. With everything settled and family harmony restored, the young one thinks he's in the clear to focus solely on the event preparations now. From that memorable dinner, the preparations for the big coming-of-age bash for the Astri siblings rolled out without a hitch or delay. Thanks to the frequent visits from the skilled tailor, Andrea La Mansion, the family's show-stopping formal-wear was coming together, falling into place perfectly. The whole lavish and imposing decor of the castle was taking shape with perfection. The staff, including the maids and butlers, nailed it right on schedule. With the hands-off, ultra-protective backing of his grandfather Patrick and Sive States, and his brother Lixel, Lion's not idle, ending up with nothing to do. However, the young master doesn't sweat the forced downtime, and mentally thanks his lucky stars for scoring that valuable break in his daily grind. He's making the most of his downtime to focus on learning to sew, but suddenly, he feels like something's off about the process. Leon keeps ironing the fabric at lightning speed, thinking that with all that frantic practice, he should have already leveled up in sewing by now. Suddenly, the system screen lights up with the notification that the new sewing talent has been unlocked. But the kid is bummed that he doesn't feel any difference. He examines the finished cotton garment, getting all worked up about why the new skill feels so weak compared to his blacksmithing talent. The young master squints his eyes and starts formulating a pretty alarming hypothesis about his true potential in that no-nonsense world. I'm freaking out thinking if I'm completely clueless about sewing and if everything I've done is a total waste. Leon shakes his head to ward off bad thoughts and reflects that if he really had no talent for anything, that something would be cooking. He's drawing parallels between sewing, cooking, and alchemy, wondering if the difference lies in the mentors or the tools used in the recipes. He's at his wit's end, yanking his hair out in a moment of pure exasperation. At that moment, Elvia walks into the office, bringing the news that Taylor Andre has just arrived at the Astri mansion to see him. Lion asks enthusiastically if the clothes are finally ready, and the employee confirms they are, but warns that the tailor's expression seemed off. The young master's eyes light up with intrigue as he hears about the guy's mug, and she explains with a straight face that the visitor's behavior was straight up off the chain. He explains with seriousness that the visitor's behavior was pretty off the rails. Elvia comments with a worried tone that it seemed something really bad, or totally off the rails had gone down with the full-on gig, saying she'd rather take it to the visitors' lounge first. And the young guy sprints off to handle the situation. With a hint of unease, the young master swiftly opens the large golden door to get to the bottom of the issue. As soon as he steps into the visitors' lounge, the young guy freezes and is left gasping at the dazzling display that's staring him in the face. He's staring down at the mannequins dressed to the nines in their fancy formal wear, and he's wondering if this living room just got turned into a high-end tailor shop overnight. The kid's surprised he managed to haul all that gear by himself, and he's cool with the dazzling threads. Lion warmly greets the pro, and the tailor breathes a sigh of relief seeing that the young master finally found him. The man showcases the top-notch, custom-made black suit for the heir, and suggests with excitement that the kid try it on right away. Lion slips on the sleek white jacket, adjusts his collar, and admires the gorgeous, intricate gold embroidery that adorns the sleeves of his tuxedo. He checks himself out in the mirror and high-fives, saying the result is off the chain. But the system reveals the suit has earned a 3-star rating from Lion. Meanwhile, Andrew's got a worried look on his face, and Lion asks if there's something wrong with the work, since the tailor seems bummed about the suit. The system warns that the tuxedo is top-notch, but is still not ready to roll because it's missing a crucial element to ease the sartorial agony. Lion scrutinizes himself in the mirror and suddenly lets out a loud exclamation as he finally figures out what's missing from the outfit. The kid points to his neck, saying it feels super bare, and the tailor starts freaking out with joy. Noticing Andre's cord, he explains that the outfit is missing essential neck accessories to give it a stylish focal point, like a tie or a pocket square. The kid realizes he needs to get his style on point and starts thinking about what accessory would be the perfect fit for the family. He plans for his grandfather Patrick to rock a classic, imposing tie, while the younger brother Lixel would be better off with a more youthful bow tie. As the young man examines the 3 suits on the hooks, the tailor musters up the courage to ask him for a pretty unusual and special favor. Andrea asks with enthusiasm if the young boss himself could give the final touches to the family ties and do the custom embroidery on them. Leon opens his eyes wide and lets out a shocked yell at hearing such an unexpected suggestion from a renowned professional tailor. The man offers to teach him everything about tie making and intricate embroidery, but the young one tries to rein him in, saying it's not that easy. He'd be pulling a major power move and disrespecting the master's work if he were to touch or redo the flawless piece created by a true sartorial genius. The kid questions the motive behind pushing so hard on that, despite the risks, and the tailor hesitates for a moment before starting to spill the real tea. Andre says that when he took the patriarch's measurements, he confirmed once and for all that the young noblewoman, for whom he used to make dresses in the past, was the mother of Leon. And he recalls with emotion how the imposing patriarch Patrick lowered his head and sincerely thanked him for sewing for his late daughter, a real game changer. The tailor locks eyes with the young master and spills the beans, revealing that it was in that moment of revelation when he finally pieced together the whole truth. He explains with tenderness that, just as in the past as now, sewing clothes with love for the people you care about means the world to the patriarch. Andre adds that, if the grandfather wove the fabric with so much love for his daughter, the final touch on the nephew's suits must come exclusively from Lion's hands. Place your hand on Lion's chest in guarantee with love that the young one's family love will give him a unique touch that no tailor in the world could pull off. The pro beams with pride, reflecting that for true craftsmen, making top-notch clothes is about more than just cutting and sewing fabric. Lion's heart swells with the tailor's kindness, and he clenches his fist, determined to bring his A-game to the final details of the ties. He takes off his white tuxedo jacket and accepts the tailor's invitation to sit down at the design table and start brainstorming the tie sketches. The young blood takes his spot at the wooden desk, confidently holding it down with a pencil in hand, already having a solid concept in mind for the designs. He's sketching out a classic tie, and the devil, explaining that he wants to make it clear in the design that his younger brother, Lixel, is the real heir to the throne. The tailor praises the design proposal and then asks what's the exact style of design the young master would like to create for himself. Lion says he'll decide on his style after finishing his grandfather's and brother's designs, and Andre suggests they start with a basic tie. The The tailor explains the anatomical structure of a classic tie, breaking down how the fabric parts are named with terms inspired by swords. Lion finds the sword-inspired names hilarious and jokes to the tailor that he should keep those terms on the down low around Patrick, who's got a major beef with fencing. The young man shows his smarts by asking if they'll be using lining, and Andrew's impressed by his student's cunning, explaining that he won't need it. The tailor lays out the high-quality white silk piece on the table and explains that the material will hold its structure firm in a very natural way. The tailor beams with pride and celebrates, saying that finally everything's ready to get the sewing boot camp started. A loudspeaker announcement echoes through the dimly lit waiting room. As Andrew checks out the kid with a pretty surprised look, Andrew pretends to love the lion's first accessory, but the system blows the whistle on a major flaw. The tie's got some major defects when you take a closer look. Andrew suggests moving on to the embroidery phase and asks Leon if he has any design in mind, and the young man says he wants to use his family's coat of arms. As he draws the leaves connected to the branches, Leon thinks the crest must have a significant meaning that symbolizes the eternal bond of his family. The tailor finds the idea extremely poetic and profound, agreeing that they should embroider the design with that beautiful meaning in mind. She's all about the texture, man, because when it comes to embroidery, it's all about bringing that high-end, refined, and straight-up natural vibe to the final product. Realizing there's no shortcut to mastering the craft, Lion asks for just 3 days to train and promises to wrap up the whole gig. He's stoked by the young boss's focus. Andrea's grinning from ear to ear, and he's all in, saying he's got total faith in the kid's potential. Lion spends the next few days frantically sewing like a maniac, getting his fingers all pricked up, but somehow manages to churn out neckties nonstop. He blows past the preset patterns left by the tailor and starts sketching out his own designs to keep his intense sewing training going. Out of pure stubbornness, the young one decides to not use the kid's magic shortcuts to guarantee his manual skills actually level up for real. Bone-tired and with fingers bruised from the needle pokes, Leon leans his head on the table and almost throws in the towel when he sees the system still classing his ties as basic. The young man slumps in his chair, whining about killer shoulder pain and eyes strained from hours of non-stop grind. He takes a deep breath, staring intensely at his battered hands, silently reflecting on all the progress he's made so far that night. Lion refuses to throw in the towel this close to the finish line, gritting down the fabric, realizing he's finally starting to get a handle on the needle's pace and rhythm. Suddenly, a bright golden light starts blazing directly from his hand onto the fabric, leaving the young master totally gobsmacked. The system announces on a bright screen that the total disaster talent finally woke up thanks to his relentless grind through the pain. Lion flashes a beaming ear-to-ear grin, relieved to see his sewing skills finally level up. Now way more skilled, he snips the fabric fast with scissors, and his competition is soon at level 2 with the progress of the work. As he expertly irons the fabric, Leon levels up to level 3 and unlocks a new achievement that grants him an extra $3,000 in bonus cash. He pauses for a moment, deep in thought, and starts piecing together how the talent awakening system works. The young one realizes the key to unlocking skills is the genuine need and urgency he feels to create that specific item. He recalls when his blacksmithing talent kicked in when he desperately needed farm tools to harvest herbs. It was the same with cooking when he needed oil, while sewing didn't kick in before because he didn't have a real need to use it. No rush. Feeling cocky with his new discovery, the young one claims the one thing he needs right now is his sketchbook. To wrap up the design, Lion stoked he didn't rely on the Magic Kits guide from the get-go, because now his genuine DIY skills are more than enough to whip up something truly epic. The white tie he's stitching starts to smolder intensely, and the system alerts him that he's earned a bonus due to his artisan's touch. With the bonus activated, he confidently picks up his shiny needle and gets ready to add the golden embroidery details to the fabric. The final result is a 3-star showstopper that's shining bright. Thanks to the gorgeous and delicate golden embroidery of lion leaves, he adjusts the shiny accessory on his grandfather's dark suit collar, and the system praises the work, saying it's a real work of art. As the system combines the pieces, it announces that the suits have merged into a flawless set, earning an extra star bonus for the outstanding synergy. The dark suit earns the legendary 4-star rating, becoming a majestic attire that commands absolute authority and elegance. The heir's eyes widen as he realizes the full suit comes equipped with top-notch passive perks, including impact resistance. Lion lets out a chuckle, noticing the progress towards the Grand Tailor achievement has advanced, thinking he'll wrap up the mission soon by finishing the other outfits. Take a deep breath to stay focused and calmly start cutting the fabrics again to kick off the second Astery family suit. After securing the bow tie on the little brother's suit, the progress bar for the achievement goes up, and Leon is stoked that the second suit is ready to roll. He's staring down at the 3 mannequins in the room, deep in thought, with only one thing left to figure out: his own tuxedo design. The kid thinks he can't rock anything too laid back since he's the main man, but he needs to steer clear of his grandpa's and bro's necktie styles. Leon suddenly gets a brilliant design idea and decides to create a unique bow tie model centered with a stunning precious gemstone. He sketches it out in his notebook and thinks the main draw of the accessory will be the precious gem centered on this lion. He walks over to an old shiny chest and considers choosing one of the rare, beautiful gems his grandfather used to wear back in the day to adorn the piece. As he opens the box, he finds several necklaces and rare stones, and picks out a stunning amethyst gem that really catches his eye. He holds the stunning gem up to the light, sporting a sly grin, thinking the purple hue bears a striking resemblance to the family's eye color. The kid centers the purple gem exactly on his tie and gets stoked when he realizes his own suit is fire. The system is lit, announcing a 15,000 chell bonus for unlocking the prestige achievement in pulling off an impossible feat for your level. The kid's eyes go wide with utter shock as he sees the system still threw in an extra 10,000 bucks as a bonus for his insane featuring. You're raking in over 100,000 chellines and finally unlocking access to Nindo's virtual store. Not that Dane not teat joint. Celine is from his virtual gaming system Lion, hyped to access the new virtual store, but suddenly, the door swings open with all the drama of Lixel's arrival. As the heir Lixel lets out a yell, he bursts through the door with an alarmingly irritated vibe and seriously questions why his older brother is still sewing the night before the big day. Lixel complains that his brother pulled 3 all-nighters sewing and warns worriedly that he's going to burn out before the Min Loesis, the big day, the grand finale. With an intensely serious and intimidating stare, Lixel orders him to hit the hay immediately, sending a terrified yelp from the young Elvia. He's got Lixel's back, and with a smooth move, he scoops up the young master, carrying him off to bed, laid out like a sack of potatoes. Leon's frustration boils over as he's forced to crash now that he's just unlocked the highly anticipated access to the penny store. The day of the final ceremony finally dawns, bathing the imposing towers of Castle Astery in the golden rays of morning sunlight. Dressed to the nines in his dazzling white suit, Leon struts down the hallway alongside Elvia, who's giving him props, saying he looks absolutely fire. The disguised ruler gives a special shout out to the young buck's tie, and the young master lets out a relieved smile when he hears that the stumble turned out all right. He's stoked that his hard work paid off, recalling how Tailor Andrew bawled his eyes out with emotion and joy when he saw the finished suits. Elvia watches him in silence with a smooth and proud gaze as they continue walking together towards the Clan Leon's main ballroom. He's gazing out at the horizon, stoked that time flew by and he's finally living his coming-of-age dream. Lixel strides down the hallway with poise and asks with a sweet smile if his big bro got some quality Z's. Lion asks surprised if his little bro was chilling there waiting for him, and the young wizard nods down with a smile. Lixel places a hand on his chest, respectfully, and proudly declares he's dead set on personally escorting him to the main hall entrance. The grand, high-end double doors of the main hall start to open slowly, revealing the massive, dazzling light coming from inside. Lixel coos that his big bro's the real MVP about to bring the heat at this high-end bash. The opulently decorated ballroom is lit up by towering crystal chandeliers, and a sophisticated orchestra plays a smooth melody for the assembled guests. The high society guests are sipping wine and whispering in awe, saying the party looks even more imperial and opulent than a royal banquet. One of the guests comments that the rumors about Marquis Patrick and his eldest grandson not getting along seem to be nothing but palace gossip. Suddenly, the herald announces the official arrival of Marquis Patrick, flanked by his heirs, at the entrance. Silencing the room, Patrick strides majestically down the red carpet, while the guests whisper at the side of the prodigy Lixel right behind him. Next up, all eyes are on the newcomer, who's making a grand entrance under the bright glow of the chandeliers. Under the thunderous applause and rapt attention of the nobles, the big man of the day, Lion Astery, makes a triumphant entrance, looking sharp in his dapper suit. The young man glides down the stairs with smooth finesse, as the servants bow and the audience erupts in a wildly enthusiastic applause. Some nobles are whispering trash, saying Leon doesn't cut the mustard like Lixel, and wondering where his rep for being a weirdo went. The patriarch discreetly calls out to his eldest grandson, who responds with the super polite and respectful demeanor to his grandfather's summons at the party. The old man gives a dismissive nod towards a group of shady-looking guests, whispering to his grandson to steer clear of people with such questionable character. Patrick changes the subject, warning him to get his act together, since he'll be giving a speech soon to kick off the Leon Bash, and Leon laughs, assuring him he won't bring any shame to the family name. Patrick changes the subject, playing it cool, and warns Leon to get his head in the game, cause he's gonna have to spit some fire to get the party started. Leon laughs it off, saying he won't bring any heat to the family name, while Patrick proudly thinks to himself that deep down his grandson really cares about this. The young man walks confidently down the carpet, thinking to himself that he's got no intention of getting mixed up with wannabes, since his real goal, there is something else. He strikes a pose elegantly in front of everyone, loudly introducing himself as Lion Astery, celebrating his belated and important coming of age. After delivering his speech with finesse, Leon figures his sole focus at that moment is to leave a solid and spotless rep with the whole fam. The kid thanks everyone for being there, but suddenly, Lixel lets out a low-key gasp of total shock hearing him speak. Lixel's eyes are glued to the heir's dazzling speech, and he's wondering if his older brother has always had this commanding presence. The malicious whispers die down, and the guests are all like, yo, this kid lion is low-key stealing the whole room's attention. Despite the kid looking like a regular Joe, there's something about the get-up he's rocking that screams high-end fashion. Other guests immediately agree and comment admiringly that the marvelous white suit somehow elevates and highlights Lion's natural beauty. The ladies of the court hide their faces behind their red fans and curiously ask who could be behind that fantastic suit's design. Crossing his arms with satisfaction, Patrick smirks and says under his breath that his eldest grandson really knew how to use his brains for this occasion. Lionel wonders if his brother had it all figured out, and the grandfather proudly agrees that Leon showed himself to be a super sharp and intelligent heir. Leon wraps up his official speech, thanking everyone for their presence and inviting the guests to enjoy the party to their heart's content until the next day at the E900T. The heir wishes everyone a fantastic and fun party, bowing down to a warm and lively standing ovation from the entire main hall. Lixel sprints over to his big bro, high-fiving him, and exclaims with excitement that his speech was straight fire. The younger one asks surprised when he had time to rehearse, and Leon chuckles wryly thinking that eloquence came from his long corporate life in the real world. Patrick approaches with an air of grandeur, praising him by saying that family blood doesn't deny the talent to show such dignity, even without a silver spoon or a halo. The patriarch beams with a warm, genuine smile, and the young scion thanks him from the heart for all that affection and approval. Both brothers share a knowing smile and enthusiastically agree with their grandfather that it's finally time to hit the party's buffet. The banquet continues packed with mouth-watering dishes and fine sweets as the orchestra keeps playing beautiful classical tunes in the background of the ballroom. Seated at a reserved table on the patio, Patrick savors his food and asks if his eldest grandson has chosen what he'll bring for the ritual yet. Lion takes a sip of wine, lost in thought, wondering how the spell's outcome will change depending on the object he chooses to bring as an offering to the magical labyrinth. Remember, books grant magical insight and wands grant attack magic. But since you're no ordinary wizard, the outcome of tomorrow's ritual is a wild card. Lion takes a sip of wine, ponders for a bit, and decides what's next. He's gonna fill his bro and grandpa in on the plan to bring his own brew. Patrick and Lixel look at the young man in shock, and Lixel says he's not sure about that. Lion explains he's gonna take one of his potions because he's got no magic skills and nothing's got a good rating yet. He's thinking that even his 4-star gear was made by Andre, so he's stuck carrying his best work. Patrick agrees, saying it's a good choice, since the maze will teach him the right skills for his abilities. The old man then says he's got one more thing he'd like to ask his grandson Patrick. He's asking if Leon's got a hankering for politics or being the heir, and he shoots back that he's not on board just yet. The grandfather is taken aback by the speed of the response, and Leon assures him he's got zero interest in that. Leon finishes by saying he's always thought Lixel would be the head of the family, leaving the younger brother stoked. When he hears that, Patrick gives Lixel a stern look and calls him out. Patrick asks if he's gonna put his brother's life on the same level as his own, and Lixel swears on the family's honor and his own mana. The grandfather takes a swig of his wine and says he's got it figured out, leaving the two brothers pretty perplexed. Patrick's extremely relieved to have wrapped up such a massive succession issue in a snap. He's itching to gloat, but he recalls the Imperial family and the Videntis fencing house are the real threats right now. The patriarch thinks the Imperial family is still fighting over their own succession, so they're not a concern right now. He concluded that the real problem is the Videntis clan. Their brutal inheritance feud just wrapped up, and they say a young one took all the heat to lift the Patrick clan. They're considered savages and prefer not to cross paths with them. Even knowing their situation is a goldmine for the Aster and Patrick, he accepts his grandson's decision and tells him to keep living his life as he sees fit. And Lion asks if it won't stir up trouble. The grandfather tells him to go ahead if he wants, but makes a mysterious caveat that leaves young Patrick curious, warning him with a terrifying glance that he won't forgive him if he gets hurt. And Lion thinks his grandfather is going to take him out before that. The young one promises to watch his back, and Patrick seems satisfied, suggesting they wrap up the meal without any drama. In the party lounge, Leon strolls carefree with his wine glass in hand, taking in the vibe. He notices his grandfather and brother are having a tough time dealing with all these pesky nobles at the party. But Leon knows he's got a major play to make right now. Just then, he's interrupted by a friendly voice that greets them. The woman asks who designed that beautiful outfit, and Lion is stoked to finally have his first client. Before he knows it, a bunch of other people start approaching, all dying to know who's behind their threads. The young guy's blown away by all these people showing up and wonders if it's because of the 4-star dress's viral effect. He says there's something fishy going on, leaving the Red Fan noble pretty perplexed. Leon reveals that the designer is the illegitimate son of a noble family and was disowned for peddling his wares to common folk. She's flabbergasted they still turn up their noses at tailors for that, and he says the First Prince's allies are all about that. Lion thinks maybe Andre got played by public opinion because of the beef between the two princes in the kingdom. He'll introduce him in 1900, no big deal, and the nobles swear there, only after the fancy threads. Lion smiles and says it would be rude to keep the tailor hidden from all this interest, finally deciding to reveal him. He reveals that the tailor is Sandri, and the noble is left in shock to discover that he was under the Asteri family's protection the whole time. Lion warns that there are only 3 reserved spots left today, sending the nobles into a panic over the scarcity. Suddenly, a firm and mysterious voice pipes up, asking them to hold up for a second. The crowd parts as an imposing woman walks towards the young Lion. She's Clarentia Videntis, the big cheese from the infamous fencing house, and she's asking if the tailor is down to take on any kind of gig. Lion greets her formally as people whisper, wondering what kind of stunning dress she's gonna cop. Lion's taken aback by the fencing house's interest and asks politely what kind of threads they'd like to commission. She responds seriously that she'd like to order training gear and also comfy everyday wear. The high society types around her start to break a sweat with fear at the intimidating presence and conversation of that woman. She explains with a terrifying and ominous stare that her old clothes are straight up unusable. Terrified, the guests start making up ridiculous excuses and make a beeline for the exit. With the general exodus, Leon and Clarentia are left completely alone in the middle of the room in an awkward silence. He gets the vibe that people are spooked, but he's still treating her like a client, no matter what the grapevine's saying about her. Leon flips into sales mode, letting Clarencia know the order might be delayed due to its size, and she agrees, asking about the deposit. Clarencia lets him know she's gonna handle the payment details separately once the party wraps up. Leon breathes a sigh of relief that the conversation wrapped up easier than he expected and gets ready to move on to the next step. He lets the guests know that the reserved spots are all taken and asks if anyone else wants to get on the waiting list. Leon's strategy works out perfectly, with several nobles securing their reservations enthusiastically over Andrew's new threads. Looking over his order list, Leon thinks this is definitely going to make Taylor Andrew very happy and fulfilled. Just then, the ruler Elvia calls him, saying that the patriarch announced the ritual test is ready to get underway. Lion strides confidently towards the massive black and gold doors of the labyrinthine library. He's approached by the first prince, who mocks, saying that's what you'd expect from the grandkid of a family as famous for magic as the heir to the throne. Tara sarcastically mocks him and asks if he's not even a little nervous about the test. Lion forces a smile, feeling a little bummed that the prince knows he's magic-less, but he responds politely that he's chill. But Lixel steps forward, looming large, and asks why his precious older brother should be nervous about it in the first place. Lion watches them staring each other down and thinks Lixel looks like his grandfather when he's losing it, acting like a whole different dude. Prince Terrace visibly bristles, but decides to play it cool and backs off, saying he's gonna go back to his seat, Lixel. So, he hands his little bro a vial and tells him to be super careful with the potion he'd been asking for. Lion thanks his little bro for the love and gets ready to face the ultimate test of the ritual that's about to go down. He steps into the library, lost in nostalgia for the times he used to hide out here as a kid, when he was convinced he had no talent to speak of. The young one approaches the mystical door, wondering what kind of treasure the first patriarch might have stashed away after the demon war. The kid gets handed a magical dagger by one of the maids and thinks that's gotta be a high-ticket item for the lion system. So, he uses the dagger to nick his finger, letting a single drop of blood fall onto the rug to activate the seal instantly. The magical transmutation circle beneath his feet starts blazing intensely with a bluish glow. From outside, the guests feel the castle's intense vibration and freak out, saying that just opening the door already causes that shake. The massive labyrinth doors start creaking open, unleashing a massive gust of magical wind and dust into the hall. Lion's left stunned when the intense magical energy in a spiral motion starts to envelop him in a very violent way. The unbridled torrent of mana starts pulling the young kid with a lot of force deep into the labyrinth's darkness. The system explains that the library can be bypassed without evidence, but it'll become a deadly trap if someone gets greedy in there. But things start spiraling out of control as the castle starts shaking violently due to the mana release. In the grand hall, princes and nobles scream in terror, clueless about what's happening, and beg everyone to watch out. Leon notes something's off and wonders if the library's labyrinth should be opened with such brute force. The kid gets sucked into the intense blue mana storm and lets out a startled yell as he's yanked out of control, unable to do anything. Tried to resist the crushing magical force, but the unbridled torrent keeps dragging his body with brutal force. Lixel and Patrick are running desperate towards the portal, screaming for the air, wondering what's gonna go down with him. Just then, a system notification pops up, alerting them that a major achievement in the library labyrinth has been unlocked. Leon gets the green light to read all the books, plus bonuses to his smarts, a permanent mana boost, and a pure mana circle. The main hall is still shaking, plates are crashing to the floor, and the guests are freaking out over the sudden earthquake. The wine glasses shatter on the table as people frantically run for cover, screaming for help and searching for the marquee. The massive iron chandelier in the banquet hall ceiling comes crashing down, hurtling towards the terrified crowd. A desperate young noble frantically points and screams in horror as she realizes the massive candelabro is plummeting straight for them. Suddenly, a sickening yellow hexagonal barrier materializes in midair and slams the massive candelabro to a halt, just before it's about to take out the crowd. One of the nobles breathes a sigh of relief to see he's alive, and notes that this radiant shield is Patrick's lower barrier. The entire castle is wrapped in the massive golden mana shield of the Archmage, guaranteeing total safety for everyone present. Patrick stands tall in the grand hall, effortlessly keeping his protective spell on lock with ease and finesse. Order Rix in the Night to rush to the banquet hall and guide and shield the guests already under the barrier. Lixel sprints to his granddad, showing major concern for the gravity of the situation they're in. The kid asks what's going down, and Patrick deadpans that the library's gone haywire and he's already bugged out all the guests. The old man's worried about the royal heirs and asks straight up, "Where are the princes at?" In the midst of all that chaos, Prince Terrace steps forward, warning that Ixel had cast a protective spell on them and that everyone is safe for the moment. Patrick breathes a sigh of relief hearing they're all good. While surveying the damage from the tremors in the castle's grand hall, the Patriarch orders Lixel to send medics to tend to the wounded and prep a safe chill zone for the rest of the guests. The Patriarch warns that he's gonna stay to personally guard the labyrinth entrance, leaving Lixel completely shook by his decision. The young man tries to protest, saying it's too hazardous, and he wants to stay to help, but Patrick cuts him off with a firm no. Patrick reminds his young grandson that he's got to step up and do his duty as the next big cheese in the family. The prince warns that it's way too reckless not knowing the state of the maze, but Patrick just laughs it off and mocks the sudden concern. The Patriarch orders Lixel to scram, leaving the young and reluctant kid looking deep in thought. The prince tries to calm them down, saying Leon's gonna be alright, while the other prince decides to help evacuate the people. Lixel clenches his fist, worried sick, and thinks about his older brother, who's still stuck in that portal. With his heart in a knot, the youngest finally decides to bail on the scene with the two imperial princes. Alone, Patrick reflects worriedly that the labyrinth is unstable and he can't risk losing Lixel there too. Suddenly, footsteps echo through the hall, and someone asks him what's keeping him standing there in the middle of this mess. It's Clarentia, the Vedenta's house leader, who's straight up asking the Patriarch why he hasn't bailed yet. She notices the Marquis's calmness and comments that he looks pretty confident his eldest grandson is still alive in there. The woman completes, saying he's acting like he's got a crystal ball, like he already knows exactly how this whole thing is going to play out. Patrick is left totally gobsmacked when Clarentia suddenly offers to help them solve that major headache. The Marquis questions the motive behind the help, as it would be a whole lot more beneficial for her family if they didn't get involved now. She explains that she commissioned clothes from the tailor who's got their backs, and she's got a major beef when her plans get royally screwed. Said that the fencing house leader warns that she's going to keep hanging back here, waiting for his orders from the rear. She slowly backs off while Marquis watches from afar, flanked by her loyal handmaiden. Patrick gives Clarentia props for her incredible insight, and the ruler agrees, saying she's really on point. He then orders Elvia to conjure a powerful magical barrier around the entire entrance of the maze. The Patriarch deadpans that not a single detail about the incident can leak to the outside world under any circumstances. With the gold watch in hand, he starts casting magic to restore the whole destroyed facade of the place. He thinks that by doing that, he might just carve out a tiny window to help Lion break out from in there. Meanwhile, in a sun-kissed field of colorful blooms, a soothing melody begins to echo through the air. A beautiful blue butterfly lands on a flower while Leon continues to croon super chill. He checks the system message, looking confused, realizing that the achievement means he somehow beat the maze. The young guy lounges lazily on the flowered lawn and admits he has no clue what he did to ace the challenge. He sits down and tries to recall how this dungeon worked in the original game. Lion concludes that's the reward area, and having already cleared the maze, it must be a completely safe zone. The system asks if you want to break the dungeon's illusion, and the kid remembers that in the game, you just had to click on yourself to collect the prize. He's thinking that the original Lion came and went without a hitch, wondering if the current chaos is all about his own mana. He realizes it doesn't add up, since if only mana mattered, his magical family would be chilling like they're at home. His magical family would be running wild like they owned the place. With this, Leon starts to suspect that all this weird change has something to do with the fact that he's reincarnated into this body. Remember, your grandfather said he hid the treasure there after teaming up with the hero to take down the demon war 50 years ago. The kid recalls that the legendary hero vanished without a trace after the war ended, leaving him stumped by the mystery. Note that the maze was only completed when he entered, suggesting that maybe the dungeon sees him as someone else. Lion recalls the war scenario as the same as the game where players literally took on the hero's role to save the world. The kid starts to break a sweat when he deduces that if the treasure belonged to the hero, it must be the gear from his old main account. He knows it's a big logical leap, but the fact is every player who entered that world assumed the hero's role.